Chapter 576, Ceremony. After hearing Ryan's instructions, Hermione walked to the other side of the grocery store and sat down and looked at Ryan. Ryan nodded seriously and turned to take a deep breath at the alchemy array, and then began to throw those grey of condensed soul into the alchemy array. At this time in the alchemy array, the speed of the four light rotating under the control of Ryan has exceeded the human readable limit, and looks like a white halo floating on the alchemy array. The grey quickly spin like they fell into the centrifuge after entering the white halo, and emit a grey mist around them. These mists are constantly attracted by the white aura, and finally merge into the aura to become part of the aura, and the grey are getting smaller and smaller. Whenever a grey ball disappears, Ryan immediately throws in the next ball. In the process, Ryan felt that he appeared on a desolate land. The sky is black and dark clouds, and the rust-red sky is occasionally revealed in the gaps of the clouds. The earth has the same color as the sky, and the same silence. The ground was covered with the widest small thumb thickness and the narrowest crack just like a hairline, and faint red magma could be seen rolling under some of the cracks. Only the dead branches of the extremely sparse shrubs stood on the ground like a desperate hand stretched out to the sky. Ryan was walking on the ground at this time, but he could also feel that his real body was just as mechanical as the online love Jinjing put a grey ball in the center. The feeling of one body and two bodies made Ryan feel a little new, but he soon discovered that he could not control the body outside now. This is the key to the transformation of the soul. Ryan thought of Teacher Luo Zhen's instructions, and Nicole May, who had seen Dumbledore's record in this regard. It's just like what Teacher Luo Zhen told me before, everyone's soul encounters a completely different situation when they are transformed, so this time can only rely on Ryan himself. After walking a few steps, Ryan suddenly found his feet hurt. He lowered his head to look around, and found that there were a group of villains under his feet that consisted of ant-sized grey smoke trying to poke him with a hair-sized spike. He just moved his foot slightly forward, and these grey smokers were completely destroyed and turned into a grey smoke. After that, some extremely small light spots were produced in the grey smoke, which fell into his body, while others the part of it quickly dissipated between this world. Ryan could feel that after this change, he seemed to have established an extremely weak connection with the space. He realized at once that this should be a necessary process for transformation, a process that he changed from body to soul. And now this piece of space, which may be an illusion, is an embodiment of Lane's mastery of alchemy rules. The heart of the rule of alchemy should be change. Then I should start from this aspect. Lane thought about it and determined his direction. But my illusion is actually a world, even if it doesn't looks big. This shows that this rule is very powerful, and it will be extremely difficult to master this rule. He began to walk on the earth. At this time, he discovered what he had seen before, and the small shrubs were actually tall trees shrunk in proportion, combined with small ground cracks and the more compact grey smoker that I saw. He feels that he may now turn into a giant, or come to a small country. The following time, Ryan walked around in accordance with his inner guidance and destroyed every villain composed of grey smoke that he encountered. Fortunately, these villains appeared in the same place, and there was no need to look around. Through this process, he discovered that the villains were actually the souls that were just put into the alchemy array. When every soul merges into this world, Ryan can also feel the suppression of himself by this world. After these souls were continuously destroyed, the power penetrated into the surrounding space bit by bit, and slowly Ryan found that his connection with the surrounding space became stronger and stronger. He can slowly analyze the surrounding space, and even began to manipulate some of the forces to transform the space. As the ball was continuously thrown into the alchemy array, Ryan saw more and more mysterious patterns flashing in this dead world. Some of them look intact, while others look incomplete. However, with the passage of time, the incomplete patterns were gradually completed, and more new patterns were born. Finally, after all the 100 small were integrated into the aura on the alchemy array, Ryan heard a sound that originated from the deepest part of the soul, just like the first sound of ice breaking when the frozen river surface in spring thawed. Everything in front of me changed instantly, and Ryan found that no matter where he looked, whether it was the ground, the trees, or the clouds, as long as he condenses his will slightly, he can discover that these things have become purely composed of mysterious pictures. At the same time, this world's suppression of him reached its peak. The following is the most difficult step. After confirming his current situation, Ryan thought that after synthesizing the knowledge of several worlds, he did not want to simply grasp the rules like Dumbledore or Grindelwald, but be able to go further, so that in the future, you can break through the power limitations of the Harry Potter world and go to a higher place. This is why he is now completing this ceremony in the Wanji grocery store, because for Ryan, only this place is really his world, and this place that can connect to Wanji is also the largest power limit he knows. The world can lay the best foundation for his further development and higher power control in the future. Of course, other people will not have this trouble, because they will never know that there are other worlds, and naturally the choice of the so-called world cannot be discussed. Ryan began to communicate with the surrounding world, let his energy slowly integrate into the surrounding environment, while doing his best to strengthen the soul and maintain self. With the exchange of energy, His resonance with the surrounding world became stronger and stronger. Finally, his body suddenly turned into golden dust flying. Everything that the dust had gone into turned into a metallic grey mist. At this time, Hermione in the Wanji grocery store suddenly put down the book in her hand and stood up, because she felt that the breath of life on Ryan suddenly became looming. Fortunately, her spiritual connection with Lane has not changed. This made her watch around Lane carefully for a long time, worrying, and finally let out a breath after discovering that Lane was not in danger. Just as Hermione continued to sit back and flip through the book quietly waiting for Ryan, www.mplnovel.com, that magical world has completely turned into a grey mist, and the center of the mist is a continuous flow, countless runes of blood red balls. Now is the last step to truly master your own way. Ryan began to recall the mysterious patterns he had just seen: reform, change, and then the birth of a new world. With this idea, a faint light appeared in the endless grey mist, like the first rays of sunlight on the horizon at dawn. It's just that the light here is blood red, and countless rays of light radiate from the blood-colored ball in the center of the grey fog in all directions, breaking through the grey fog and letting everything around bathe in the blood-colored light. As time went by, the blood-colored ball flowing with the runes slowly turned into a door, and then as the grey mist continuously poured into the door grew bigger and bigger, and the last blood-colored door stood in the void. At the same time, the little ball floating in the brain of Ryan's real body also changed at the same time, and after absorbing the mental and magic powers in the body, it also became a same door. When the two doors were formed at the same time, the door in the void jumped out of the endless darkness and appeared in Ryan's mind, and then merged with the door in his mind. Suddenly, Ryan felt that his soul was injected into the body again, and at the same time brought great strength. The whole body has an unprecedented sense of relaxation. At this moment, Ryan's eyes opened. At first glance, he saw the birth of a pink gem, the size of the fist of a newborn baby, in the alchemy ray in front of him. Chapter 577, Door. You're awake, Hermione said in surprise when she saw Ryan open her eyes. Her eyes were a bit out of focus, and she seemed to be out of a strange state of dullness. You haven't moved at all for 100 days, and the breath of life is erratic. If I could feel that you were still alive through our connection, I would have been crazy. I'm sorry to worry you. Ryan stepped forward and hugged Hermione hard. I'm back, and I succeeded. You mean, can you now reach the same height as Dumbledore and the mysterious man? Hermione asked curiously. It's like this at the power level. I can now confront the two of them head-on, but I can't beat them because of insufficient accumulation, Ryan said with some regret. There is no way to use the world of tens of thousands of groceries as a world anchored by itself to indeed be able to fully exert their strength in each world, but the flaw is that when specific to each world, it will be worse than the rulers who are favored by those worlds. You wouldn't say that the mysterious person is also a person favored by the world? He killed so many people and did so many evil things. How could it be favored by the world? Hermione's eyes widened. Of course he is favored by the world, Ryan corrected. What happened to us humans is too small for the entire world. These killings of the mysterious people and these evil things did indeed cause us tremendous damage, but there is nothing worth valuing for the will of the world. Just like we do and pay attention to the war between the two ants in the yard. It sounds terrible. We won't discuss this anymore. Hermione felt that the content of the chat had become heavy, and she changed the subject. Oh, do you think you have changed now? Let me feel it, Ryan said, closing his eyes and concentrating on the door in his head. In fact, he was a little curious why he had a door when he mastered the rules. After inspection, he found that the door was not empty, nor were countless runes looming. Instead, it draws a pattern that occupies the entire surface. There are 10 circles on the pattern, and the circles are connected to each other with a total of 22 lines. He perceives these circles from top to bottom, and finds that when his mental power sweeps through, these circles will convey the meaning of what he represents to Ryan. Crown, wisdom, understanding, love, sternness, beauty, victory, glory, foundation, kingdom. This is Kabbalah's tree of life. Lane recognized the meaning of the pattern on the door. Mr. Liu Zen was the last lady in his mind when he mastered the rules. The one that appeared in my mind was actually a door. This may be that I chose Wanji grocery store as the anchor to communicate with the world. It's caused by the fixed world. After careful inspection, Ryan found that this door brought him a comprehensive improvement. It can even be said to be an improvement in the level of life. At least now, after a simple inspection, he found that his body is more perfect than before, and he has a further understanding of all magic, and he can directly make gold without the help of any alchemy array. In addition, he can feel other good changes in himself, but it takes time to slowly feel it. In short, now I finally have the confidence to act for our goals in the next war, Lane said to Hermione happily, and then reached out to remove the Our Lady from the alchemy array. This is the best news I've heard recently. By the way, what's the difference between your gem and the magic stone we protected in first grade? Hermione looked at the pink in Ryan's hand curiously. Gems. Did you always call it virgin rose? Because even though it looks similar, in fact the two are very different. To be honest, It is not much different from the magic stone made by Nicole May in many ways. For example, they can all make elixir, and they can also turn base metals into precious metals. I think for most people, the only difference between them is that the method used is different. If you use the magic stone to use the virgin rose, then the virgin rose is no different from a pebble. The vice versa. For most people, then there are other differences. Hermione found something strange in Lane's statement. Yes, for most people, these two seem to be the same thing. But for me, this thing can be used as a powerful power amplifier that can only be used by people I designate, so I was thinking about making it a magic wand or a magic bracelet for later use. Ryan took this little Madonna in his hand and said, "Of course, definitely not now." In fact, Ryan really wanted to make powerful magic props immediately, but with the strength and preciousness of Our Lady of Roses, he needed some time to carefully design this prop, and at the same time collect as much as possible from those worlds. On the material. Considering that Hermione has been here with her for more than 3 months, she must be extremely tired. So Ryan took Hermione to the world of Rose Maiden to relax. It is indeed a very relaxing thing for British people to participate in several pleasant afternoon teas, especially when you drink tea with you are all very friendly peers. Of course, some people of this age, especially mentally, may be slightly smaller, but it does not prevent Hermione from being able to completely relax herself and having fun with them. When she is with them. While Hermione was playing with the Rose Girls and Alice, in the laboratory, Teacher Luozen looked at the piece of his own rose that brought him by Lane and gave a sighing sound. www.mtlnovel.com. Your growth rate is indeed far beyond my imagination. I used to think that even if you are more powerful in this area, you want to make the virgin rose after 20 years old. That's because I had better luck, and I've seen more things I've seen. Ryan didn't forget the teacher's praise. He knew exactly why he achieved these achievements. It's mainly your luck, Teacher Luozen said. When I made Our Lady of Roses, I was strongly suppressed by my world. As a result, although I had mastered the rules, I was not as perfect as you, so I can only make the second-grade fragment of Our Lady of Roses. It turned out like this. Ryan finally figured out why Teacher Luozen failed to make the perfect Madonna of Roses. He had to rejoice that although the Wanji grocery store is very small, it is still an independent world. As the master of this independent world, Ryan naturally received the full support of the world, and then harvested the alchemy miracle of Our Lady of Roses. For the next 2 weeks, Ryan and Hermione spent a happy time in Teacher Luozen's manor. They didn't say goodbye to Teacher Luozen, Alice and those Rose Girls until they had adjusted themselves. "Ah, finally back," Hermione said with a smile after going back through the space door back to the laboratory, because it had been more than 3 months since she and Ryan had left here, so she set foot on Hogwarts again. The land of Ibaraki Castle made her very happy. "Yeah, it feels so good to go home. In the future, there will be more and more such things. Since you choose to face this with me, then you will always adapt to this kind of life," Ryan said. Chapter 578, Injured. Ryan and Hermione returned to the alchemy laboratory to sort out their clothes, and then left the alchemy laboratory to prepare for the downstairs hall, because it is time to eat. Although they had just had a big meal with Mr. Luozen, it would seem strange not to go to dinner when everyone was eating dinner. While on the road, Ryan manipulated Madonna Rose out of curiosity to turn a nail on an armor into gold. This proves that the Virgin Rose and the Magic Stone have a lot in common. Suddenly feel that gold is worthless. Hermione looked at the nail that turned into gold. When they came to the restaurant, they found that Ron was sitting alone at the table. His face was not pretty. So Ryan stepped forward and asked, "What's wrong with you? It looks very bad." "Isn't it going to be a game? I am still a little nervous," Ron said weakly. "But thanks to your incense, every time we finish our training break, Harry will always order a soothing nerve, otherwise I should be worse than now. I remember I was often nervous before the game last year. Go to the toilet and vomit." "You seem overly nervous. This is not a good thing for you. You need to adjust your mindset." Ryan thinks that if a person like Ron puts it in his previous life, it is likely that he will face the college entrance examination. Will be pulled out of the examination room by an ambulance. "I know. But I'm still nervous in the face of the game. By the way, you have sold good incense and incense before. I want to know if there is a better medicine in your hand." Ron said that he raised his head here with a hopeful look at Ryan. "Yes." Ryan nodded. "However, the more effective medicine will completely deprive you of your emotions within a few hours of the effect of the medicine, and if used continuously, it will cause serious sequelae." "Then I don't want it." Ron shook his head, then asked curiously, "What's the use of making this potion?" "I don't think anyone wants to experience the feeling of being as cold as a stone for a few hours." "This is combat supplies," Ryan explained. "When you need the battle of life and death, if you can get rid of fear, get rid of excitement, get rid of excitement, get rid of all emotional changes. If you want to give full play to your full level, I think there should be a greater chance of surviving on the cruel battlefield. So I just provided this thing to the core members of the Phoenix Society, and it was not sold in the store." It turned out to be the case. "I hope my father and brother will be safe." Ron was worried about his father and brother by Ryan's words. Last year, Mr. Weasley was injured and told everyone that the war is not far away from everyone, also close to everyone. "Relax, Everyone will be fine." Hermione was comforted and asked after looking at it. "Right, Harry, didn't you go to practice together this afternoon? Why didn't he come to dinner, huh? Didn't he come?" Ron looked up at Gryffindor's long table at this moment. Sure enough, no figure of Harry was found. "We obviously came to the auditorium for dinner together. I just went to the bathroom to wash my hands, and then when he came out, he disappeared. I thought he had come to eat in advance. Hopefully, he shouldn't have anything wrong today. Everyone has been very busy recently, and really can't divide much energy to help him." Hermione shrugged helplessly. However, Hermione's expectations were still in vain. When everyone returned to the common room after eating, Professor McGonagall stood there at the portrait of the fat lady and saw Ryan in a calm tone. "Ryan, Ron and Hermione, you three come with me." After finishing talking, Professor McGonagall led the way down the stairs and went downstairs. Ryan and the three of them followed with some uneasiness. Soon they discovered that Professor McGonagall was taking them towards the school hospital. Then their hearts sank. "Since I have been teaching at the school for so many years, I have never seen such an outrageous attack." At this time, everyone had walked to the door of the school hospital, and Professor McGonagall pushed the door open to signal Ryan that they would enter. Mrs. Pomfrey is feeding Harry in bed with a small white porcelain cup. Harry looks pale, but fortunately, the problem with his medicine should not be too bad. But obviously the smell of the medicine was terrible, as can be seen from the twisted features on Harry's face. He was found in the men's bathroom on the 3rd floor, and Mr. Porter got a heart curse. Professor McGonagall said in a low voice, "I never thought that the conflict between students at Hogwarts would become like this." Drilling mantra. "Who did this?" Ron shouted after listening to Professor McGonagall. "I want to put him." But before he had finished speaking, Madame Pomfrey was interrupted with a loud voice. "Shut up. Now the patient needs a quiet rest." Ron immediately shrank his neck and closed his mouth, then looked at Professor McGonagall with an inquiring look. This was done by Mr. Malfoy, and he and Mr. Porter broke out in the bathroom. Professor McGonagall was very angry when she said that as the Dean of Gryffindor, she has always treated each one fairly. Student. But this does not mean that she is not biased towards the students of her own college, especially now that her own student is clearly a reasonable party. From the tone of her words, Ryan could hear his inner anger. "Where is Malfoy now?" Ryan asked Professor McGonagall. "I remember Professor Moody told us last year that the heart drill curse is an unforgivable curse. The use of these spells on humans will be a lifetime of Azkaban imprisoned." "Malfoy is now in Snape's office," Professor McGonagall said. Professor Snape passed the door of the bathroom at that time, and just heard the panic shouting of the crying Myrtle before he found Harry injured and fell. "Then I took Harry to the school hospital and notified me, and then took Malfoy to his office." "That old bat must be partial to Malfoy," Ron muttered after listening to Professor McGonagall. It was at this time that Harry had finally finished the medicine in the cup, and Madame Pomfrey put away the cup and said to Harry lying on the bed, "You are indeed very lucky, because the person who hurt you is not skilled in using this magic, so the heart curse will not hurt you very much." www.mplnovel.com. You will sleep in the school hospital tonight. Well, I think you can go to class normally tomorrow morning. After that, Madame Pomfrey turned to look at them. "You guys come to see Harry. It's best to compress the communication time to less than 10 minutes. Harry needs a good rest now so that he can help him recover." Watching Madame Pomfrey and Professor McGonagall walked out of the ward together, Ron couldn't wait to walk to Harry's bedside and ask, "What did you encounter just now? Why did Malfoy release the heart curse on you? You don't know that we have been discussing you at dinner." "Yeah," Hermione went on to say, "you have to know that your situation does not only affect yourself. In the current situation, your every move will affect countless people." Just now Professor McGonagall was in the public when the three of us stopped at the entrance of the lounge. "We were really scared." "I'm really sorry, let you worry about me," Harry said leaning against the bed. It may be that the medicine just worked, and Harry seemed full of breath when he spoke, but he could hear his apology in his words. "I just took the time to take a look at the live map on the way to dinner in the auditorium today, and then saw Malfoy and the crying Myrtle together, feeling a little curious and passed." Harry's answer really fits his personality. For example, the first grade in the original text went to get the magic stone, the second grade went to the secret room to kill the basilisk, and the third grade tracked Sirius. Most of these things were done directly after Harry thought about it, and he didn't do it at all. If it weren't covered by the protagonist's halo, he had already died several times. And now it seems that even if the plot has changed so much, Harry's impulsive problems have not changed. Chapter 579, Reason. Malfoy and Myrtle, what are they doing together? After Harry said that he saw Malfoy and Myrtle together through the live map, Ron immediately asked with a gossip. "I was also very curious, so I chased it." Harry showed an innocent expression, as if explaining to everyone that he had just ran to Malfoy. "In the beginning, I just wanted to hide in the door and listen, but I couldn't hear anything even if I put my ear on the bathroom door, so I gently pushed open the door and went in." When Harry walked into the bathroom, he saw Malfoy standing with his back behind the door, holding the hand by the pool, his yellow head hanging down, and the soft voice of Myrtle came from an interval. "Don't do that. Tell me what." "I can help you." "No one can help me," Malfoy shuddered. "I can't do it. Can't do it. can't do it. If you don't do it soon. He said he would kill me, apostrophe. Who is that guy here? Hermione asked when he heard Harry talk about it. Mysterious person? I don't know. Harry shook his head. But I guess it should be, because at that time I happened to see Malfoy's face through a mirror on the wall. His face was very pale, and at the same time tears kept pouring out of his eyes. This time he can be forced to look like this. Yes, I can't think of anyone other than Voldemort who can do this. And then, you saw Malfoy at this time? I think Malfoy should have seen you too. What did he do at this time? Ryan asked. No. You just started fighting without saying a word at this time. How do you know? Harry asked. Of course, this is not my first step. He turned around and pulled out his wand at the same time. In that case, I could only draw out the wand to defend myself. And the first magic is also launched by Malfoy. I swear that the magic should not be a safe magic. Fortunately, he missed it and directly smashed a wall lamp on the wall. But my counterattack did not work. He blocked my fuchsia. Then I accidentally smashed a toilet during the fight, and the water that was accidentally slipped. Malfoy rushed up to cast a spell on me at this time. I wanted to use Shenfling without shadow, but remembered Ryan told me that it was a dangerous black magic and stopped. As a result, I was hit by Malfoy with a drill spell before I could switch to the next magic. It's simply Harry. How are you feeling now? Ron asked excitedly, although he knew that Harry had gotten a heart curse when they entered the door. But this time Harry talked about what happened when he got the curse. Later, everyone couldn't help worrying about him. It's basically painless now. I want to say that Malfoy's curse caused me at most only 1/10 of the pain that Voldemort entered my soul last year in the Ministry of Magic. Harley is very optimistic. After being hit by the Diamond Heart curse, I fell to the ground at once, and then the whole person fainted. At that time, Malfoy seemed to be scared. He first froze and ran desperately outside the bathroom. But he failed to escape, and witnessed the mysterious mystery of the audience, who cried out when I saw me fall. Let's kill in the bathroom. Let's kill. Her shout attracted Professor Snape, who had just passed by. When the door slammed open, Professor Snape grabbed Malfoy, who was running out. Then you tried a few magic tricks to check my condition. After that, I was sent here, and on the way he informed Professor McGonagall. I think you all know the next thing, and I really hope Malfoy will be punished severely this time, said longingly. I hope so, Lane comforted, but he didn't think Malfoy would be punished in accordance with his crimes, because Hogwarts habitually freed himself from the Ministry of Magic's jurisdiction. Even if the murder case was like Voldemort's youth, he could find a way to fool it. Right. What about Ginny? Did she ever come to see you? Hermione asked suddenly. I specifically asked Professor McGonagall not to call her. Anyway, I will be able to have classes normally tomorrow morning, so I don't want her to worry about me. Well, Harry will be a good husband in the future. It can be seen from the fact that I can remember Ginny when I hit the heart curse this time. The next few people drove away from the office after Madame Pomfrey only had a few words. Okay, this child needs a quiet rest. It is better for you to leave now. Early the next morning, Ryan finished washing and came to the common room, saw a group of people around the notice board. The notice board said that Draco Malfoy was criticized by the whole school for using black magic against his classmates. At the same time, from now until the end of the semester, Malfoy had to go to Snape for confinement all weekend. In the end, Slytherin was deducted by 200%. It's completely different from what I thought, Hermione whispered to Ryan on the way to the auditorium. If, as Moody said in class last year, Malfoy should now send him to Azkaban for this matter, the punishment now is too light. No way. In this situation, Hogwarts is really not suitable for conflict with the pureblood who holds the Ministry of Magic. The Malfoy family is one of the important families that control the Ministry of Magic. We can see from the conflict that we are already in a weak position. Once the magic part is broken, the situation is too dangerous. After looking at Hermione's disappointed look, Ryan went on to say, even if the laws of the ordinary people's world are outside, there will be punishment for minor crimes, so now this is not too unexpected. After entering the auditorium, Ryan discovered that Harry was sitting on the table with a bitter face, while Ginny was sitting next to him whispering. After seeing Ryan sitting beside them, Ginny said, "You should have been yesterday. Tell me about Harry's injury," and he shouldn't hide his words from him. It was Harry's firm request at the time, and we considered that his condition should not be too excited. www.mplnovel.com So he did as he said. Ryan quickly hurled the pot to Harry as quickly as possible, and then pulled Hermione to eat further away. Ginella pulled me to ask for a whole breakfast time, as if I were made of glass. I couldn't touch it. Seriously, I was not so vulnerable. This was when the teacher hadn't entered the classroom before class. Harry whispered. A few of their friends complained to Ryan, and what's worse is that everyone thinks so. Everyone. Ryan knew that Harry could not be concealed from this attack, because too many people knew about it. Especially when the myrtle was stimulated, almost all the castles knew this. The only thing that could be concealed was the specific spell that attacked Harry, but he couldn't figure out why an attack would make Harry think everyone thought they were touchless. But Ron's next sentence answered Ryan's mind. Doubt. Harry was suspended for the next game. Yesterday we started training Madame Pomfrey and came out of the hospital to ban Harry from participating in the game. She said that Harry's body is not suitable for such a fierce event. Even the next game is not allowed. Let's go and watch. Have you listened to Madame Pomfrey so honestly? I don't believe it, Hermione said. Of course we wouldn't just succumb. Ron shrugged. But Mrs. Pomfrey called out Professor McGonagall. After 15 minutes of nagging by Professor McGonagall, we could only give up and let Harry the idea of participating in the next game. To be honest, they are not wrong. Patients who have been hurt by the heart-draining curse should really calm down when they cultivate. Ryan said. Your days are still long. There is no need to risk this for a game. Chapter 580. Time goes by. In the following time, the smell of gunpowder in the two schools of Gryffindor and Slytherin became stronger, because most of Gryffindor's players or ordinary students think that this incident is a conspiracy of Slytherin, using a Malfoy who does not participate in the game this year. The captain of Gryffindor missed the next game against Gryffindor, a multi-team life and death game. Relax, Harry. This was the night before the game, and Ginny comforted the seemingly depressed Harry. Tomorrow I will definitely be able to catch the thieves earlier than Autumn, and it was a good choice for you to choose Dean to replace me as a chaser. The last practice this afternoon we worked well. That's good. Harry looked more relaxed than before. Thank you very much this time. I was my first year as a captain this year. I didn't expect that I could not participate in such an important game. This feeling is really, but it's not your fault. It's because Malfoy is too much, and actually uses so dangerous magic. Ginny persuaded. You don't have to blame yourself. Tomorrow you just need to listen to our college victory in the castle. The news is just fine. The following evening, the entire Gryffindor common room appeared very quiet. It wasn't until the next morning before the game started that the common room was noisy again. Groups of students left the common room wearing rosettes and hats, waving flags and scarves, and then embraced the sun. Ryan, why don't you go to the game? While everyone was walking about the same, Harry was surprised to see Ryan writing on a sofa in the common room. I wanted to go to the game, but Professor McGonagall asked me to stay. Ryan raised his head after finishing an ancient Egyptian holy book symbol on parchment. Our dean Professor McGonagall obviously thinks that you will sneak into the arena to watch the game, so I ordered the Commander-in-Chief to stare at you here to ensure you will not appear on the arena. I'm not the kind of unreasonable person, Harry said, but when he saw Ryan staring at him with a playful gaze, he quickly lowered the volume. It's just sometimes impulsive. It seems that you are still clear, so it makes sense that Professor McGonagall let me stare at you here. Ryan lowered his head and continued his work. But don't waste it now. I personally recommend that you finish your homework in the Black Magic Defense class. Snape won't be able to avoid your homework because you are injured. For the rest of the time, there was only the rustling sound of the pen on the parchment. Until more than an hour later, the door of the common room was opened and a loud noise came in. Ron rushed into the common room immediately, holding a silver cup in his hand. After seeing Harry, he shouted loudly, waving his silver cup. We won. 400 and 500 and 404. We won. And Ginny rushed in for the second time. She embraced him with open arms, but Harry froze for a moment, but the dust and sweat adhered to the team uniform that Ginny wore, hugged Ginny tightly, and at the same time kissed Go Down. There were immediate good-sounding laughter and a few whistles from the students. The next time is celebration time, which is also a rare opportunity for everyone to relax in the current tension. So everyone tries to relax themselves as much as possible. This win seems to be an introduction. After the game, everyone has been happy for a long time. At least in the next few weeks, everyone has a lot of smiles on their faces than before. Ryan felt that this was not a bad thing. People are talking about something that makes them happy is better than talking about the horror scenes of black magic all day long. But the situation outside the school has entered a weird state, although there have been 2 recent attacks and 1 case of missing persons. However, according to Lupin's recent letter, the density of such attacks is much lower than normal. So he reminded Ryan in the letter that he must be vigilant recently, and he worried that Voldemort would engage in a sudden attack. I think Professor Lupin is right. Some things really need to be prepared in advance. Hermione read the letter and leaned in close to Ryan and whispered, what are your preparations in the city in response to requests? It's definitely a blow to the guys who are trying to invade. Ryan seemed a little confused here. The only thing I haven't figured out is what the mysterious people are thinking about. Attacking Hogwarts Castle, where the Principal Dumbledore sits, is practically the same as dying. Even if the mysterious people now draw a helper from other places, but you can't let people die. Don't be impatient. Hermione comforted, you have done everything you can to prepare, and have just improved your strength. You don't need to worry too much. Indeed, I don't have to worry too much. When things happen, I just need to be flexible. Ryan smiled relievedly. This time has entered June, because Ginny's OWL's exam is approaching. She has to spend several hours reviewing her homework every night. So Hermione, a friend of Ginny, has more time with Ryan. Oh, what's the design of your new wand? After writing for a while, Hermione asked as if she had thought of something. It's been a long time. It hasn't been designed yet. www.mplnovel.com. You have to know that this very important magic prop is not so well designed, especially using this Madonna rose I made while mastering the rules as the core of the magic prop later. This magic prop will grow. In the future, it will likely grow to the level of a magic prop like the old wand in Dumbledore's hand. Ryan said. Old wand? Is that wand in Dumbledore's hand special? Hermione was puzzled. For her, the magic wand is a few gallons of spellcasting items in his impression, which every wizard has. Other than that, she couldn't think of anything related to the wand. It should be the most special one among the wands I know. Ryan explained. It is said that the old wand is made of elderberry by the river and is 15 inches long. The core is Yeechee's tail feather, a weird substance that only a wizard who can control death can control it. With Ryan's story, Hermione knew the story about the three brothers of Peveril, and also knew the existence of 3 death holy vessels. After listening to the story, Hermione thought for a while and said, can be considered a creation of the gods, then these 3 things should indeed be very powerful. You are really confident that what you make can be comparable to these ancient ones? Treasure? Of course I am confident. Ryan raised an eyebrow. Don't forget, this Madonna of Roses is connected to me. Naturally, I can grow with me, and in this case, I believe that one day it will exceed these artifacts that determine the upper limit of the level once they are created. Well, it's good to have this kind of confidence, but I still hope you can make this one sooner. Hermione said, because I always feel that the recent situation is getting worse and worse. Chapter 581, Ready. Hermione's worries about the situation are very reasonable. Although the Daily Prophet still declares that everything is under control day by day, Ryan conducts according to the information he obtained from the Phoenix and Lupin. After analysis, it was obvious that Voldemort and his subordinates were indeed planning a big action. Judging from the repair progress of the disappearing cabinet, the time for this to happen is likely to be within a week. So this week Ryan basically put his energy into the preparations. If he is lucky, he is even sure to deal with a group of guys who may invade the school through the disappearing cabinet. But not everything can go as smoothly as Ryan thought. One Friday after Ryan and Hermione talked, the two of them were reading in the library after dinner, and suddenly Ryan turned his head nervously and looked out the window. What's wrong, Ryan? Hermione asked aloud when he heard the movement on Ryan's side. Look outside, Ryan said, pointing to the sky outside the window. Hermione, who was sitting back to the window before, immediately turned her head and looked in the direction of his finger. This is, what? Hermione asked in surprise. Through the glass windows of the library, she saw a transparent barrier on the sky outside being slowly produced. Above the transparent barrier under the sunset in the west, everything below included the golden color of the castle. Magic defense of Hogwarts Castle, Ryan said looking out the window. At this time, almost everyone in the library saw an unusual scene outside. They all walked out of the window and suddenly appeared against the sky. The vision is pointing. Hogwarts was also the most chaotic time in the wizarding world when it was built, so it was to protect the fragile little wizards. It was not just a school, but also a fortress for fighting. And today the situation means that all of Hogwarts' ancient defensive magic has been opened. Ryan whispered to Hermione, who was looking at the outside. Compared with just now, the outer magic barrier has been completely formed. It was like a half-transparent eggshell covering the castle. Libraries are not allowed to make loud noises. Seeing the changes outside, the voices of the students are getting louder and louder. Madame Pins came out of her office with her wand and shouted loudly, "If you cannot guarantee quietness, please." Speaking of which, she saw the scene outside the window. Mrs. Pins stepped back in shock, sitting on a chair, and shook her head weakly. It's impossible. How could things be so bad? Just as everyone in the library was arguing about the situation outside, Professor McGonagall was magnified many times by the magic and heard the whole castle. All classmates immediately returned to the dorms of their respective colleges. All teachers returned to the staff lounge. Please act now. What happened? After returning to the common room on the orders of Professor McGonagall, Ryan kept asking others what happened, but everyone seemed confused, and no one knew what had happened. Fortunately, after 7 or 8 minutes, Professor McGonagall climbed in from the entrance of the request room. She looked serious and her lips were tight. Professor McGonagall, what happened? What's going on outside? Is anyone injured? When you saw Professor McGonagall come in, the students immediately surrounded the past 7 as if they had found the main heart, asked eloquently. Now, students, please keep quiet. Professor McGonagall stretched out his hands and pressed down slightly, and everyone in the common room immediately closed his mouth. After being completely quiet, Professor McGonagall announced to everyone, a quarter of an hour ago, the mysterious man and the Death Eaters launched an attack on the Ministry of Magic. At the request of Minister of Magic Scrimgeour, Dumbledore went to the Ministry of Magic to provide support. For security reasons, Hogwarts is now in a curfew state. Under the curfew, every entrance into the castle is covered with powerful magic. All students should stay in the common room. It is strictly forbidden to go out. The school's professors and some volunteers will patrol the school to ensure everyone's safety. I hope each of you will obey the rules. especially now that uncontrolled blind adventure is absolutely not allowed. At this point, Professor McGonagall glanced at Harry. Okay, that's all I have to say. Professor McGonagall looked around the common room. Now the 6th and 7th grade commanders, come out with me. I have something to ask you. Ryan followed Professor McGonagall to the corridor outside the common room. Professor McGonagall said seriously when he saw that all 4 had arrived. Because the number of professors and volunteers is not enough, I hope you will join the patrol team. Of course, this matter is not a mandatory requirement. You can also choose to help us maintain order in the common room. I'm willing to patrol in the school. Professor McGonagall was the first to speak as soon as Ryan's voice fell. He himself planned to find an opportunity to monitor the door of the request room when Professor Dumbledore was away. Opportunities for action will naturally not be let go. And after his reconciliation, Hermione and the other 2 7th grade commanders subsequently indicated that they were going to patrol the castle. This situation was not surprising, because it was everyone's character to choose risk for Gryffindor. Professor McGonagall watched with satisfaction as the 4 commanders standing here did not flinch in front of danger. Relax. We can't give you 2 dangerous tasks. You only need to patrol upstairs in a while. The entrances and halls of the schools are definitely the places where our professors patrol. And today the school curfew is only Dumbledore. Before going to London to take precautions against the current tensions, I think there should not be too much danger. After that, Professor McGonagall took everyone to the teacher's lounge downstairs. When they went in, they found that most of the people in the house were already there. The professors were almost there, and the heads of Hufflepuff and Slytherin had arrived before because the dormitory was closer. Ryan focused his attention on Malfoy as soon as he entered the door, and found that he had swept away the previous decadence. www.mplnovel.com. The corners of his mouth were slightly raised, as if something very gratifying in his heart was about to happen. It seems that today is Malfoy's scheduled attack day, and Ryan couldn't help but be vigilant. Later, he looked away from Malfoy and looked around the entire lounge. As a result, he discovered that the so-called volunteers were actually acquaintances of the Phoenix Society, including Tunks, Bill and Arthur Weasley. Ryan asked after sitting on the empty chair beside Arthur Weasley. Mr. Arthur, did the Phoenix Society come to the 3 of you? There are only 3 of us, Arthur whispered. Moody, Sirius and Kingsley are now fighting alongside Dumbledore near the Ministry of Magic in London. Because the mysterious people and a large group of Death Eaters have caused a lot of pressure there, especially this year. I do know the mystery. Where did people summon so many black wizards from other places, so that London needs more capable manpower? Where did Professor Lupin go? Hermione asked curiously after he heard Arthur talking about what everyone in the Phoenix Society was doing. He said he wanted to come before, but we stopped him. Because most of the werewolves on his side are old and weak women and children who are not suitable for fighting. I told Lupin that we have enough manpower and he needs to protect the weak people. Arthur whispered to Ryan and Hermione. Okay, let's keep quiet. Everyone is here. Ryan heard the words and looked at the entrance of the room. Sure enough, the 4-rank Ravenclaw, who was the furthest away from the common room, and the chairman of the male student council followed the small Professor Flivy. After seeing all the people coming together, Professor McGonagall and the 3 other deans came together to discuss, and then she stood in front of the lounge and said the arrangements for tonight. Chapter 582, Contact War. After discussing with Professor McGonagall and others, the result is that the most powerful professors and volunteers are divided into teams to guard the entrances of several schools, and the team of students patrols each floor of the castle in pairs. It must be said that this is the most reasonable arrangement in this situation. The professors with the strongest combat effectiveness are placed in the most dangerous places, and the students whose level is less are arranged on the relatively safe floors. In theory, if there are intruders, then they must pass the defense of the professors to reach the students who come to help. Soon Professor McGonagall began to allocate staff. Specifically, Ryan and Hermione were allocated to the 7th floor, while Malfoy and Pansy were allocated to the 8th floor, where the request room was located. Ryan felt that this might not be a coincidence, but that Snape deliberately arranged it when the professors gathered together to discuss it. However, it also further confirmed that Malfoy should be acting tonight. Fortunately, Ryan was assigned to the 7th floor this time. For him, this is the best place tonight. It is just a matter of monitoring Malfoy to do. What? Okay, you guys are here now. I think this night will be a calm night that is not much different from the previous one. Just need everyone to work a little bit. When everyone went to their patrol position, Professor McGonagall gave speaking. I really hope it will be calm tonight, but I don't think it will be so, Ryan said to Hermione through the Phoenix brand as she stepped up the big staircase to the 7th floor. Is Malfoy's conspiracy about to succeed? The careful Hermione had observed Malfoy's state change before, and now Ryan knew the truth. As soon as she mentioned it, I want to see how effective the trap you have posted for most of the semester. Just watch it. Ryan looked confident. I will surprise those intruders. Because the 2 men's footsteps are relatively fast, Malfoy did not come up when they reached the 7th floor. So Ryan motioned Hermione to help him look at the stairs, and then he ran to the 8th floor and placed a few alchemy monitors on the vase next to the tapestry, until everything was ready for him to go down to the 7th floor. Malfoy and Pansy slowly walked up the stairs slowly. After seeing Ryan and Hermione standing in the corridor of the 7th floor, Pansy showed her expression on the sole of the shoe and wriggled her lips, as if to satire something. But Malfoy pulled her up and walked upstairs. Less than 5 minutes after Malfoy went upstairs, a small badge on Ryan's body shook, which meant that there was only one person left in the corridor on the 8th floor. Ryan immediately grabbed Hermione and pointed to the stairs upstairs. Hermione nodded to understand. Then the two ran upstairs along the stairs. Pansy was looking down nervously at the stairs at this time. His face suddenly turned pale after seeing Ryan, and they said in a sharp tone, "You two mud species should not come up now. You should not come here tonight, I warn you." But before her words were finished, Hermione took out her wand and waved at her without warning. A red beam of light flew directly to Pansy, but when the beam was close to him, a white barrier suddenly popped up on Pansy's body to block the front of the beam to counteract the attack. Just before Pansy lifted her chin slightly and said something with a smile, Hermione's left hand with the ring slammed her fist, and the white barrier immediately shattered like a piece of glass, and then another coma the curse hit her chest. Pansy immediately fell forward with his knees soft, and then rolled down the stairs to the 7th floor platform before stopping. Does the Weasley twin brothers sell things without looking at others? Hermione stepped up to Pansy and pulled up the sleeve of her left hand. Ryan immediately saw her wearing a copper bracelet, which should be one of the dozens of bracelets sold in the store before. No way, this low-end bracelet will not have much investigation before it is sold. And we also know that most people who can buy this kind of thing are pure-blooded. If we don't sell them, estimate us there will be less than half of the market, Lane explained as Hermione watched as she unloaded her bracelet and wand from Pansy. Okay, let's go upstairs and wait, Hermione said after collecting the loot and magically binding Pansy into a dumpling into a broom compartment. Two people came upstairs and found that the corridor was empty, and there was none. So Ryan asked Hermione to help stare at the exit of the request room, and he set up alchemy rays on both ends of the corridor to create a barrier to prevent intruders from bypassing the interception and going to hurt others. After spending more than 40 minutes setting up the alchemy array, Ryan had just set up enough magic traps with Hermione at the door of the response room and heard Professor McGonagall sound in the corridor. Please patrol personnel at all levels to hold on to their posts. Now someone in the Forbidden Forest is trying to attack. We are confronting them at the main entrance of the castle, but everyone need not worry. The attackers should not be able to break through the defense of the castle. Is this attracting attention? Ryan thought of this at once, first attacking the Ministry of Magic to attract Principal Dumbledore, and then attacking the castle entrance and dragging the professors to the first floor. It seems that this attack on Voldemort and his men has made a start. This also shows from the side that the people brought by Malfoy will not be simple. Maybe he could catch a big fish this time. Lane thought about throwing a few silver badges into the corridor. Then she and Hermione hid aside to hide themselves with the alchemy array. The next 10 minutes were pure waits. But Professor McGonagall downstairs has not lifted the alarm. Ryan thinks this may be because the Death Eaters coming from the direction of the Forbidden Forest are not many and their strength is not strong. But once they had concealed their bluff, Professor McGonagall had no good other than to be vigilant at the door. Even if Professor McGonagall can guess that people outside are attracting their attention at this time, she will not take the initiative to attack, because she dare not take the safety of the whole school students to bet this possibility. www.mcnovel.com. After all, for her, as long as the safety of the students can be guaranteed until the Principal Dumbledore comes back, if the enemy takes the initiative to attack, if the enemies lure them out and attack Hogwarts Castle, then she will definitely regret it. After waiting for more than 10 minutes in silence, Ryan showed a door on the wall in front of them. Malfoy sneaked out of the door sneakily. There was a dark blue on his face. This wound did not exist before he entered. It should have been beaten just now. In addition, a disgusting dry hand was held high in his hand. There was a candle in his dry hand, but the candle was not lit from Ryan's perspective. What is he doing here? Hermione asked through the Phoenix brand. Malfoy is observing the surroundings. He is holding a glorious hand. The hand taken from the hanged person is wrapped with mandala or other herbs and soaked. The person holding the hand, it can be used to illuminate in the dark, but others can't see it. This kind of thing is a good companion for thieves or robbers, and Malfoy seems to use it right now. Malfoy shouted in the direction of the stairs at this time, "Pansy, where are you, Pansy?" But now Pansy was stunned and in the broom cabinet downstairs. It was impossible to answer his cry. After shouting twice, Malfoy also found out that the situation was wrong, and he immediately turned to prepare to run back to the request room. But at this time Hermione moved faster. She waved her wand and released a thin line of black mist. It wrapped around Malfoy's left hand holding the glorious hand and pulled hard. Malfoy's left hand immediately fell to the ground with the glorious hand. Malfoy let out a scream, but he rushed straight into the room where he asked. Chapter 583, Plan. Watching Malfoy run into the room of quests, Ryan did not chase them in, but changed to a place where they could see the door of the room of quests, and then used magic to hide themselves as before. Of course, before hiding himself, Ryan gently waved his left hand at the glorious hand that fell to the ground. An off-white light flew from the ring to the withered hand, and the glorious hand collapsed like a deflated balloon, and then quickly turned into a whitish-white cinder-like gravel. This magic is a new magic that he developed after mastering the rules. It can completely destroy the magic props by destroying the magic loop in the magic props. After using it today, Ryan found that the magic effect is very good, which can effectively weaken the enemy's power. The only bad thing is that using it in battle is likely to greatly reduce the loot after the war. They won't hide inside, won't they? After hiding for a few minutes and seeing no movement, Hermione was a little nervous. Relax. They will come out soon, Ryan promised. Because if nothing goes wrong at this time, the trap on the disappearing cabinet has been touched. From the beginning of this semester, it was discovered that Malfoy tried to set up the corresponding trap after trying to repair the disappearing cabinet. After a semester of construction, especially after starting to master the rules of alchemy, this trap was repeatedly strengthened, making this trap into a chain trap. Greatly increased lethality and concealment ability. He can be sure that unless Voldemort's side can find a master alchemist to check it carefully before teleporting, otherwise he can't avoid this trap at all. The first layer of the trap is space disturbance. As long as 5 intelligent creatures have been transferred in the 2 disappearing cabinets, the spatial disturbance will be triggered when the 6th intelligent creature enters the space channel. In this way, the space transfer function of the disappearing cabinet will be completely scrapped, and the 6th creature this time will also be involved in the space turbulence and be completely crushed. The second layer of the trap was temporarily changed by Ryan after he began to master the alchemy rules. He tied 3 fat nuclear bombs that were placed in the response room as triggering thunder into the space between the 2 disappearing cabinets in a small mezzanine created by myself. As soon as the first trap is triggered, these 3 nuclear bombs will be activated and sent to another disappearing cabinet to explode directly. Therefore, after the trap is activated, the initiative will be transferred to Ryan and their side. Because once the cabinet disappears and cannot be transmitted, the people who came in before will be trapped in the room where the request is made. Where there is no food or water, they can't stay long, let alone once Dumbledore returns, they can't even run. At this time, if the people inside want to get rid of the predicament, they can only try to rush out and die. So Ryan, they just need to wait for the rabbits at the door. There is no need to enter the complicated environment of the room to hide with them. Of course, all of the above are Ryan's predictions, but his predictions are not blind, but infer with detailed evidence. If Ryan can penetrate the walls of the request room, he will find that his conjecture is completely correct, as he and Hermione chose a place to wait patiently. The Death Eaters in the request room were already quarreling. I said earlier that the little boy of the Malfoy family is not reliable at all. You still don't believe it, don't you see it now? The people behind us can't get up at all. Rab asked on Lestrange. Bellatrix's uncle complained. My sister-in-law repeatedly said that the people of the Malfoy family are not reliable. Okay, shut up. Avery's eyes were bloodshot. What we need now is to make a decision and then act immediately. Otherwise, when Dumbledore returns, I don't think the 5 of us can stop him. Then I'll ask our little Malfoy first. Mercer stood up, then picked up the large blood vessel that had just been blocked by the magic grass and covered the wound with a handkerchief. Draco Malfoy. Say, what did you see outside just now? Malfoy trembled, unable to say a word. After all, he had been living steadily under the wings of his father. Although he took over the task after his father was in prison this time, the task was far more difficult than he thought. The repair of the vanity cabinet was not enough, and it has put a lot of pressure on him, not to mention the fact that today's action was not smooth at the beginning. 12 people who should have come, but only 5 people disappeared and it seemed that the cabinet was broken. At the same time, the cabinet disappeared, and with Hogwarts shielding, their connection with the outside world was broken. After discovering that he was in an unfavorable situation, Merceau punched Malfoy directly. That's why Ryan had seen Wu King on Malfoy's face before. So when Malfoy was being questioned by Merceau with his collar, he was so nervous that he couldn't say a word at all. Hurry up and say, don't procrastinate here. We don't have much time to spend here. Watching Malfoy didn't speak, Mercer was even more angry. He grabbed Malfoy's collar and pressed him directly on an old abandoned cabinet. I saw almost nothing just now. It might have been a little scared, or it might have calmed him down during this time, and Malfoy finally calmed down, but because of Ryan, they suddenly launched from stealth, attacked, so Malfoy could not provide much information. I only saw a thin black thread wrapped around my hand, and then my hand fell to the ground. That's right. When Merceau raised his hand to give him another punch, he said suddenly, if I guess right, it was Gryffindor's commander who attacked me. Why do you say that? Rabastan asked with interest. You didn't say that you didn't see anything, and now you are not just making excuses to deceive us? No, of course I dare not deceive you. Malfoy seemed to be possessed by the eloquent at this time, because this sudden attack is not like the style of a school professor, and now it is a curfew. www.mtlnovel.com can appear in the corridor. The only students on the level are the level leaders who previously assisted the professors, and because this is the top floor of the 8th floor, the most likely attack on Pansy and the magical attack on me was probably the 2 Gryffindor levels patrolling on the 7th floor. long. And the two-level chiefs of Gryffindor have enmity with me, and they also hurt my aunt in the Ministry of Magic last year. So no matter from the reason of attacking me, the habit of using magic to their level, judging that it was the two of them who attacked me just now. In that case, let's rush out now, otherwise it will be bad to wait for the professors downstairs to come over," said a bearded wizard. "We are rushing to the school entrance now, they can't stop us." "But what about our mission?" Constantine, the only witch here, said that she looked in her 40s, and her lips and nails were an unknown black color. "We didn't come here from Constantinople to escape in this castle after a circle. Don't forget that this was the first task we received when we went to the Dark Lord. But we are seriously understaffed now, and not even half of us have arrived," said the Greek wizard named Constantine. "The Dark Lord's orders are not allowed to be twisted, and even if we do not have enough staff, we will have to complete the task," Rabastan said enthusiastically. In a while, we rushed out directly, killed the two troublesome little cubs, and left the two sides of the corridor to perform the task. Yes, there was a sparse voice in the request room, and others were either excited or helpless. After allocating the team, the 6 people in the room gathered at the door of the request room and prepared to rush out of the room. Chapter 584, Clean Up. Something happened. After waiting a few minutes on the ceiling of the hallway, Ryan heard a noise in the direction of the door of the request room. But it wasn't the Death Eaters that rushed out after the door opened, but 2 things like coal were thrown out. Stealth smoke bomb imported from Peru. It took only a few seconds after seeing the 2 pieces of coal-like objects to fall to the ground, completely turning into black smoke that completely enveloped the corridor. Just like Lion, he hung himself on the ceiling with hooked claws. Hermione couldn't help saying to Ryan through the Phoenix brand, "Shouldn't you sell these things?" "Really not," Lane responded. "Our smoke bombs are all restained now, and it won't be this black." The smoke bombs in the hands of Death Eaters are probably obtained by themselves. It is not difficult for these members of the pureblood family. "We were not at the end of last year. Have you ever used this thing in the Ministry of Magic?" "I guess they thought it was easy to use and ran to import a batch of them." "Well, hide yourself. I guess they will rush out." Sure enough, after a few seconds, the door of the request room slammed open, and the people inside swarmed out and launched a life-throwing curse at the same time. Obviously he didn't consider that someone would hang himself on the ceiling, so this round of life spell was completely empty. "Hands," Ryan informed Hermione after the wizard below fired the life mantra, and the 2 flew down at the same time as if they saw their prey and dived. Harry Regal. Because the glorious hand has been destroyed, the Death Eaters below actually can't see anything in the darkness. Naturally, there is no precaution against what the attackers descend from the sky. The last of the 2 teams who ran to both ends of the corridor in an instant was killed by Ryan and Hermione with a short sword from the top of their heads, and even the screams were not issued, although the magic props on them as a pureblood wizard promptly popped up for protection. However, in the face of 2 long daggers made by Mithril using Mithril after mastering the rules, it was passed through like a piece of thin paper, which did not play a role in hindering a bearded person I don't know. Ryan and Hermione quickly exchanged the target identity that was just cleared and chased to the side of the corridor. Awadasiro Ming. 2 green lights shot from the black fog in front of them. The 2 people running in front felt the sound of the heavy object just fell to the ground and immediately felt bad, so they began to release the life-spelling curse backwards to try to block the chasing soldiers. It's a pity that the smoke can't hinder the perception of Ryan and Hermione. They easily escaped the life-threatening spells that were shot at them according to the direction of the wands of the 2 people in front of them. Just as the man at the front was preparing to release the life-spelling mantra again, Hermione manipulated the black shadow to entangle the Death Eater behind him. When the man in front released the life mantra again based on the approximate location where he heard footsteps, Hermione's hand slammed with a sharp hand to block the Death Eater she had wrapped in a shadow on the life mantra attack line. As a result, the green light directly hit the Death Eater at the back. The loud screams he had made before the whole person flew up without warning came to an abrupt end. Merspa, the Death Eater who ran in front of him, immediately guessed what had happened after hearing the scream, but he continued to run forward without looking back. Death Eaters don't have the noble sentiment of self-denial like members of the Order of the Phoenix. Naturally, when such a tragedy comes, they will naturally take care of themselves, and they will definitely not come back to see their colleagues. But Ryan did not intend to let him go. He took a pen-sized pen from the space bag, and the gorgeous opal filled with opal carefully removed the leather cover on the head of the steel, and then faced the food that was running in front. The dead slammed violently. The Death Eater running in front of him heard the wind and immediately waved his wand to release the iron armor curse for defense. As a wizard, this reaction is absolutely excellent. However, neither the defense of the iron armor curse nor the magic props on the body could block the enchanted mithril at the top of the steel brace, and the entire steel brace was directly plunged into the waist of the Death Eater with a wind. Less than a second after the steel brazed into the meat, the Death Eater screamed and fell to the ground. At this time, Hermione also approached the Death Eater who had just used to block the life mantra to confirm his identity. It was Musper, Lane, who was killed here, Hermione asked. Let's see. Ryan and Hermione walked to the edge of the Death Eater who fell to the ground, and then the enemy fencing turned him over. At this time, the steel brace on his waist had disappeared. It seems to be Rabastan Lestrange, another Death Eater. Okay. Now it's time to go to the other side. Ryan and Hermione turned together and ran towards the other side like a corridor. At the other end of the corridor, Malfoy and the Greek Witch were helplessly attacking the transparent barrier blocking the stairs with magic. They have just opened from the most simple Arahuo cave to the thunderbolt explosion and flying sand, and then tried it again at the life spell. Unfortunately, almost all of these spells have lost their effect on the barrier. Only the life spell makes the barrier slightly shaken. But if you want to rely on this to break the barrier, it takes a lot of time, and now Malfoy they lack the most. After two familiar screams before and after, the Greek Witch heard the footsteps in the dark mist behind him getting closer and closer. She fired a life-threatening spell to the spot where the sound came, but the spell didn't hit anything, because the footsteps only paused slightly and then continued to approach. "Who are you? Get out, don't hide there." The screams just made the witch's spirit tense to the extreme. She shouted out of gate immediately after discovering that the magic attack could not work. "Okay, don't try to resist by putting down your wand. I will guarantee your safety." Hermione walked out of the black smoke with her wand. Malfoy looked at this hemp which he usually looked down on www.novel.com. He was shocked to find that his 6-year-old classmate had such an unknown aspect. He saw a certain indifference to life from Hermione's eyes, and with such a chilling look on his back, he vowed that he had only seen it in the eyes of his Aunt Bellatrix before. Go to death. After seeing Hermione appear, the Greek Witch immediately patted the tiny skull in her waist. Then he raised his wand and fired a magic at Hermione. An instant black mist flew out of the mouth of the skull at the waist and ran straight to Hermione, and at the same time screamed like a glass stroke. "How dare you!" Hermione, who walked a long way on the road of death, recognized at once that this black mist was obtained by torturing dozens or even hundreds of children and killing them. She spoke to Ryan directly through the Phoenix brand. "Don't come over first, her life is mine." After listening to Hermione's words, Ryan hid directly in the mist and pressed her into the air. Anyway, there was only one Death Eater now mixed in Hogwarts preparing for a sneak attack, so it is okay for Hermione to vent her anger. But the Greek Witch didn't know what Hermione had experienced. In her eyes, Hermione was just a student who had not graduated. So she not only directed the black mist to follow Hermione who was evading, but also provocatively said, "Little guy, only strength is the true truth. Can your justice save you now?" While Ryan was still curious that Hermione was more powerful than the guy on the opposite side but was beaten and beaten, she suddenly stopped her body and did not dodge. The Greek Witch immediately urged the black mist to fly away like Hermione. But the next moment, the Greek Witch's eyes widened immediately and an incredible expression appeared. Chapter 585, Persuade. The last Death Eater who invaded Hogwarts was now extremely shocked, because she discovered that the black mist formed by the grudges as her killer suddenly ignored her command and flew towards her. Afterwards she squeezed into her chest directly in a surprised scream. In an instant, a pain of tears in the soul hit her mind, and she immediately lost all consciousness. "Innocent children, you have revenge. Now please go to the place where you should go. Don't get lost in the world of the living." Watching these black mists representing the innocent dead shattered the food after the white light sphere of the dead soul, Hermione spoke in magical Kenya. After listening to Hermione's words, the black soul slowly faded the black, and then burst into more than 60 white dots flying around Hermione 3 times. The 3 people present seemed to hear the children's laughter like silver bells. Then Hermione opened a small, blood-red vortex that went straight into the world of the dead. The white spots immediately lined up and disappeared into the vortex. Throughout this process, Malfoy had been leaning against the barrier, using his right hand to press the handkerchief wrapped around the left hand's residual limb. Because he felt that a pair of scrutiny eyes had been fixed on him, as long as he dared to act rashly, he would be fatally hit. "Throw your wand on the ground, although you made a big mistake today, but sin will not die. Don't try to resist giving us an excuse to kill you." Ryan came out of the black mist at this time, holding the wand pointed at Malfoy. "Okay." Malfoy listened to Ryan's words for a few seconds, then pulled his wand from himself and dropped it on the ground. "It seems that I have completely failed today, but can you tell me how Pansy is now?" "She was hidden by us after being stunned. There was no danger to her life." Hermione searched all the loot from 5 corpses at this time and walked over and said, "You can still think of Pansy now, which means you are not bad enough to be cured. So can you tell us why you are doing this?" "I am a pureblood wizard. Isn't it proper to support the Dark Lord?" "I can only say that I am unlucky and I don't know the true strength of the 2 of you. Otherwise, today's death is definitely not ours but the 2 of you." Malfoy looked up slightly. "You really don't have to act here at this time." Ryan smiled, but his wand never moved away. "We just counted 5 life spells, but didn't see you. I don't think you and the lunatics who are keen on killing are not a group." "Crazy maniac. Are you talking about you?" At this time under Hermione's spell, the black smoke that had permeated the corridor completely disappeared, exposing 5 corpses on the ground. Malfoy looked at the bodies and looked up at Ryan, who satirized them. "You weren't cultivated by people like Dumbledore." "Who are we cultivating has nothing to do with the topic we are discussing now, and we are not lunatics, only killing those people to make the world a better place. You have not caused any damage now, nor have you permanently harmed anyone. Ryan said, so you don't have to worry about us killing you with a sudden riot. By the way, Hermione and I really want to know why you should do this. Because we can feel that your heart may be due to timidity, or maybe due to it still preserves a little kindness. You should not like killing people. I have no choice. Ryan's words seemed to be a fuse that caused Malfoy, who had been under pressure, to collapse. He squatted down and shouted, I must do it. He will kill me. He will kill me. The whole family. Is it mysterious? This is indeed his style. Ryan nodded slightly. I used to get a lot of benefits for Death Eaters like your family. I didn't expect you to be so miserable. Then it's weird what you follow him in the end. We have no choice. Perhaps because the psychological defense line had been broken, Malfoy said these things very simply. He will kill everyone who doesn't obey his orders. I really have no other way. I want to live. I can only do what he says, and take these people to school according to his orders. In this case, I suggest that you stand on the side of justice. Hermione said to Malfoy. Although she didn't keep her hands when fighting the Death Eaters, she proposed to Malfoy at this time. Bless a chance. As you said just now, Malfoy did do a lot of wrong things, but Sin did not die. Hermione explained to Ryan through the Phoenix brand. At the same time, the Malfoy family is very conducive to our division of mysterious people. The most important thing is that although the Malfoy family belongs to the pureblood family, they have been vaguely rejected by other pureblood families. Look at Mal. No one from the Ministry of Magic or Hogwarts has known that. No one has served as a high-ranking official. I know they are the most disgusting racists, but at least so much better than the group of Death Eaters who make killings everywhere. You're right. They have hope to save. Ryan thought of the meritorious life in the 50s of the previous life at this time. The Emperor can be transformed correctly if the method is correct, and the racist should be able to. Not to mention that the Malfoy family is not a stiff terrorist like Bella, and will naturally succumb when confronted with strong suppression. No, no. Malfoy shook his head frantically. I have gone too far now and can't look back. And I still have family members. We knows that your goal this time is to assassinate Dumbledore. But you didn't see that the mysterious person arranged this task just to let you die? Lane sneered. He was just to punish your father's failure last year, and by the way warned his Death Eaters who would have consequences if they failed. Malfoy had to say something. Hermione stepped forward and picked up Malfoy's collar with one hand to pick him up, and then poked the wand on his face. Lane, there is no need to talk nonsense with him. We have cleaned up 5 Death Eaters today. www.mtlnovel.com. Since he doesn't want to stand on the side of justice, it doesn't matter if he is added. Fighting with the enemy is always someone has to pay for it. Not to mention the famous Malfoy family seems to add that he only has 3 people. I joined the righteous party. Join now. Malfoy shouted with his eyes closed, crying. He had just noticed a trace of madness from Hermione's calm brown eyes seen in Bella's eyes. Moreover, the 5 corpses now lying on the ground remind him that Ryan and Hermione are completely different from other members of the Order of the Phoenix, and they are closer to Death Eaters in treating non-cooperatives. Under such pressure, he had to make his choice immediately. Very good, remember your choice. Hermione dropped the crying Malfoy to the ground, and then said to Ryan through the Phoenix brand, look, for this kind of person, your kind of persuasion is useless. Only in this way can it be simpler. You are right. Ryan admitted that Hermione's approach is the most correct. Don't look at Malfoy doing so many things this year, but he is actually just a confused young man. Hermione just exhaled the momentum that killed hundreds of people, and Malfoy immediately succumbed. But my mother and father, Malfoy said after sobbing a few times. Your father will not be in danger in Azkaban at present. As for your mother, we can set off to pick her up later. In this case tonight, I believe that even if someone looks at your mother it's too much trouble, Ryan said. After that, they were put under the watch of Ryan. The 3 of them walked into the room with a request to check the details of the disappearing cabinet. Chapter 586, Sneak Attacks and Anti-Sneak Attacks. After entering the request room, they soon came to the vanishing cabinet. The disappearing cabinet now looks much worse than before. Most of the cabinets seem to have been burned, and even a cabinet door has been completely burnt into coke. Is this the trap you said? It looks very good. Hermione said something that shocked Malfoy after seeing the scene before her. Of course it is very good. You should believe my level as an alchemist, Ryan said, turning his head to look at the shocked Malfoy. Who is the 6th to come over? I don't know. Malfoy shook his head. All I know is a dark wizard from Turkey who is good at illusion. Okay. Today we killed an encore Death Eater from Turkey, Ryan said while examining the disappearing cabinet, and at this time Malfoy finally couldn't stand the curiosity of his heart and asked, what did you just say? Trap? Yes, trap, Hermione said with her hands on her chest. Actually, Ryan discovered that you are here to make trouble here at the beginning of the semester, so he set up a few traps on this disappearing cabinet just in case. I didn't expect you to really hit it. But now it seems that the traps are working well. You guys, how did this happen? Why did I never find any traps when I repaired it? As a person who had tossed through this disappearance cabinet for a whole semester, he was a little shocked that he didn't find it for the whole semester. This fact A person who needs to spend a whole semester to fix this thing can find that my hands and feet are strange. Ryan glanced at Malfoy contemptuously. At this time, he just confirmed that his trap was fully functioning. The only thing he didn't know was the guy who ate 3 nuclear bombs in the Bojin bookstore where the disappearing cabinet was located just now. But I want to be able to get the information tomorrow. It's over here, let's go out. So what are we going to do next? Hermione asked. Go get this guy's mother first. After all, we promised him just now. Ryan turned to look at Malfoy, who was shrinking in the corner. Yeah, go out and see if he lost his hand. If you are there, you can help him catch it. After all, he is now on our side. Thankfully, Malfoy's left hand is still lying at the door of the request room, just under the body of the bearded Death Eater's body. Hermione took his hand in only 2 or 3 minutes. Let's set off to pick up people. I think the mysterious person probably already knows that Hogwarts is not going well. Next, we must move fast, Lane said, lifting the protective barriers blocking the 2 sides of the corridor. Just as the 3 had just reached the stairs, a figure in black robe walked up, and then a low male voice sounded. I didn't even see any patrol people on the 7th floor. Why are you all hiding upstairs without patrolling? Professor Snape, Malfoy replied in a panic when he heard the voice, but Ryan intercepted his words. Hello Professor, there are just a few intruders upstairs who are trying to get out of the request room. Penetration is now cleaned up, thanks to the help Malfoy has just provided for us. I didn't. Malfoy's face changed greatly after he heard this. When he was about to say something, he felt that Hermione was standing behind his waist with his wand, and he immediately supported. He changed his expression with an expression. I mean, this is what I should do as a class leader. Very good. Snape lowered his head and looked closely at Malfoy's face. Malfoy was very nervous at first glance, and even a few drops of sweat came from the temples. But Snape didn't seem to notice Malfoy's expression, or noticed it, but thought it was just the aftermath of the battle. So he just pointed to Ryan and they pointed downstairs. You can go down and rest now, let me upstairs. Then we will leave. Ryan bowed slightly and walked downstairs, but he passed a message to Hermione through the Phoenix brand. After receiving the message, Hermione held the wand in his right hand and was alert all over. Stand up. Just as Ryan went down to the 1/3 of the stairs, Ryan turned sharply and released the armored charm, which blocked the sneak attack of an unknown silver glow spell released by Snape. At the same time, a red and black light emitted by Hermione forced Snape to leave the location where she had just attacked. Ryan ran quickly upstairs, and at the same time, his wand released a ball of silvery white current on Snape. Snape felt that the power contained in the ball had to give up the magic he was going to release and use armor. The small hit him on the magical protection, bursting after another group of dazzling lightning, pushing him back again and again, while some of the detrimental debris blasted the floor from one hole to another, splashing up. The gravel cut Snape's robe. Ryan rushed to the 8th floor corridor and waved his wand towards the chandelier on the roof. The chandelier immediately turned into a metal skeleton with only body and limbs, waving sharp claws to Snape. Picking the wand turned the paving stones on the floor into a giant snake that shattered the metal skeleton, and then rushed towards Ryan with no progress. Ryan waved his left hand wearing a ring, and the giant snake disintegrated into a slate floating in the air. Ryan's wand in his right hand pointed at Snape, and the slabs all turned into lava with a scorching heat wave and flew back to Snape. Snape hit the ceiling with a spell, and a large piece of ceiling fell to block the lava. At the same time, he created smoke that filled the entire corridor. Ryan had to use the spell to let the dust down. At the same time, he nervously looked forward to worry about Snape's sneak attack. A few seconds later, the smoke dispersed, and Ryan saw Snape desperately running away with his back to him. He caught up immediately, but just a few steps before Snape turned into an empty classroom, and then there was a sound of glass breaking from inside. When Ryan ran into the empty classroom, he found that the window glass of the classroom had been shattered. Through the hole in the window, he saw a large, bat-like figure in the distance, passing through the dark towards the wall. Fly to www.mplnovel.com. What about Snape? At this time, Hermione grabbed Malfoy's neck with her left hand and walked to the door of the empty classroom with his wand against his chin. I just heard that there was a lot of movement and came up. I think I won. Snape escaped. Ryan pointed to the big hole in the window. Yes, let your hands be lighter. Malfoy is now fainted. I was still a little nervous right now, and I used a lot of power in my hand, but I promised him to be alive. Hermione said a little embarrassedly, and then put Malfoy on the ground with his wand against him because he was just violent. Pinched his neck and looked a little purplish in his face and recover quickly. Malfoy took a sharp breath and coughed violently, then cried out with a wow. You are killing me. Snape will definitely tell the mysterious man that I have messed up everything today. I am really dead. It's okay. Anyway, the purpose of the mysterious man is to let you die. No matter how bad, you can't die twice. Ryan comforted, but it seemed that this comfort had no effect, and Malfoy cried with regret. Okay, let's go. Ryan pulled Malfoy lying on the ground. If you want to save your mother, I think we can't delay any more time now. But how are we going now? Malfoy asked. Grab my arm. Malfoy did just that, and then asked, what should we do next? Next, Let's go. Hermione, the old place. After a whip on the ground, Ryan disappeared with Malfoy, and then Hermione disappeared after turning half a circle. Chapter 587, Find Someone. You. Just that was Hogwarts Castle. You, how did you come out? Malfoy said in an extremely shocked tone after the three of them appeared on an open space in the Forbidden Forest. You don't need to know this, Lane said coldly. You just need to tell us where your mother is now. Wiltshire, England. Malfoy said where his home was, and then asked, but you have never been to that place, and since the mysterious man used our manor as the headquarters, there the flyway network was also stopped. How should we pass? I have my own way, but you need to cover your eyes, and the next thing can't be shown to you. Ryan said to signal Hermione to cover Malfoy's eyes, and then took a small one out of the space bag. The silver-white remote control pressed the red button above against the sky. Soon a spaceship the size of a bus flew from the sky. This is the small spaceship they brought from the world in black before. After a while, this spaceship has completed the mapping of the radiation world and has been used by Ryan as a satellite in low Earth orbit. The stealth engine on the spacecraft can ensure that it is not discovered by others. After pushing Malfoy to board the spacecraft, Ryan read the specific location of Malfoy Manor. A few seconds later, the spacecraft appeared beside Malfoy Manor. Okay, here we are. After everyone got off the spaceship, watching the spaceship flying higher and higher in the night until it disappeared above the sky, Ryan took off Malfoy's eye shield. This Malfoy looked at the surrounding environment again and showed a surprised look again, but Ryan quickly interrupted him. Okay, tell us how to get in. We will take your mother out now. Come with me. Malfoy was finally excited at this time, and he led Ryan and they came from a path sandwiched between tall hedges and low bushes to a wide motorway. Ryan they saw a gorgeous cast iron gate standing at the end of the driveway. Now raise your left hand and walk straight in. All other methods will trigger defensive magic. Malfoy introduced to the iron gate, then he raised his left arm silently like a salute, and walked straight through. Just like that, the black wrought iron gates are nothing but smoke. No problem. Ryan pulled out her wand and tapped into the void after a few clicks. Then she and Hermione raised her left hand through the iron gate. Behind the iron gate was a meadow, and there seemed to be a few white peacocks there. It's just that this small lawn doesn't seem to have been taken care of for a long time. It's a little messy now. On the other end of the lawn is a decent 3-story mansion with a loft. Ryan feels that this building is much more luxurious than the residence of his own manor. It is worthy of being a rich man. In silence, the three hurriedly crossed the gravel road on the lawn to the main entrance of the mansion. It's possible that some house-friendly magic was cast in this house, so when Malfoy stood in front of the door, no one opened it, but the door opened inward automatically. Wait. Ryan grabbed Malfoy, desperate to run upstairs, and then looked at Hermione. Hermione was squinting at the moment, using her grasp of death rules to perceive life in this mansion, and soon she opened her eyes and whispered, "There are 3 people in the house. There is one in the house at the end of the corridor on the first floor. Staring corridor. There is one in the bedroom on the second floor, which looks like it is sleeping. There is also one in the innermost bedroom on the left side of the corridor on the third floor, which seems a little restless walking around the room. Our mother should be on the third floor." Malfoy whispered that since the matter had reached this point, he had no choice but to follow Ryan, and they went to black. Because Voldemort was not the kind of subordinate, very forgiving person. I don't know who the other 2 people are, but I can be sure that they should both be Death Eaters. The people that the mysterious person caught before are not locked in our house now. That's good. We don't have to worry about accidental injuries. You are here to wait. Ryan finished, and Hermione at the same time invisibly touched the corridor covered with luxurious carpets. Malfoy, standing in the hall, was surprised. It was found that there was no trace on the thick flocking carpet in the corridor. The person sitting in the room at the end of the corridor staring at the corridor should be the guard. When Ryan approached, he noticed that his head was dozing a little bit, and he seemed to be very alert. No wonder, under normal circumstances, no one will directly rush into Voldemort's den to make trouble, so it is normal for the sentinel to relax when he is sent. So in the invisible state, Ryan walked around behind him easily, and then used another opal-filled steel cone to pierce him into the back of the neck to kill him. "What's this? I saw you use this just now," Hermione asked through the Phoenix brand as she went upstairs. "Did it quench the poison?" "I think you can kill the enemy by sticking it into the enemy." "No." By this time, the 2 had walked up to the bedroom door on the second floor. After opening the door with Araho Cave, they saw a Middle Eastern-looking wizard who heard the movement from the door and was sitting up from the bed and reaching for the wand on the bedside table. 2 light balls, one white and one red, flew out of the wand heads of Ryan and Hermione and struck him. The red light ball released by Hermione hit first, making his upper body seem to melt. Then Ryan's lightning ball ended his pain and blasted his upper body all over the room. "Fortunately, I stopped it. It was really uncomfortable for the smell to stick to my body," Hermione said as she lowered her wand to remove the iron armor curse that was used as a barrier. "By the way, you haven't answered my question just now." "That was the inspiration I got from the murderous opal necklace." After the 2 of them walked out of the door, Ryan gently closed the door and took the lead to walk upstairs. "I copied the immortal effect on that necklace, and at the same time made this thing a one-time use to avoid being used by the enemy. It sounds great, but why have you never brought this thing out before? Is it because it is too expensive to be mass-produced? www.mtlnovel.com. Hermione asked about the previous necklace worth 1,500 gallons. If the price is one-time consumable, even if the effect is good, there is really no way to promote it. No, because many things in disposable items can be replaced with bargains. So the cost of one thing is 20 plus cashmere. The core problem is that this thing is estimated to be usable only by 2 of us. What? Hermione asked with some incomprehension. Because it is necessary to prevent this thing from being easily used by enemies for magical purposes, I have adopted the destructive design as a whole. The advantage is that it can destroy those magical defenses in a targeted manner, but the disadvantage is that the use of this thing must rely on physical strength. You think we among the so many people I know, apart from the 2 of us and Hagrid, who can withstand the full resistance of a fully equipped wizard and use physical means to kill opponents? Spring crossbow or high-pressure gas crossbow? Hermione made her own suggestion. After staying with Ryan for a long time, she also knew that Ryan was good at many things, including various organ props. The volume of those things is still a bit large, which will affect the agility of the users. In addition, even using those things instead of direct throwing still needs special training. But you reminded me that I think these things can be done granted to those new wolves who cannot use magic in the state of being a giant wolf, so that they can also have a certain long-range attack ability in that state. Ryan said, "Okay, let's talk later, we are here." By this time, the 2 had stood in front of a bedroom door on the 3rd floor. The goal of this operation should be inside. Chapter 588, Back to School. After opening the door again as before, they were greeted with a silver glow. But Ryan, who was already prepared, easily escaped. He then stunned Mrs. Malfoy with an enhanced coma spell. "Okay, let's go." Ryan waved her unconscious Madame Malfoy with a floating charm, and Hermione followed him towards the entrance of the room. "My mother. Did you pick it up?" Malfoy, standing in the entrance hall, was looking nervously into the dark corridor, and asked anxiously when he saw Ryan walking out of the darkness. "Yes, we brought your mother out, but because it is not the time to explain, we brought your mother out after stunned. But you can rest assured that this will not cause him any harm." Ryan explained that he was satisfied with Malfoy's attitude now. At least one person who can care about his family is more salvation than the kind that the 6 relatives don't recognize. "That's good, that's good." Malfoy breathed a sigh of relief, and after so long a tense spirit, he finally found a reason for him to take a breather. "So, where are we going now?" "Of course I went back to Hogwarts Castle, and now for you there is only that place that can protect your safety to the greatest extent." Ryan said what he wanted to do next without thinking. "Okay, hold on to my arm, we will go back to Hogwarts now." "Hermione will go with your mother." With a very soft blast, the 4 people disappeared from the dark hallway. The Malfoy mansion once again fell completely into the darkness and silence. Ryan, Hermione, and Mr. Malfoy, what are you going to do? And, what is going on in this place? When Ryan phantomed back to the 8th floor of Hogwarts Castle, as some sharp voices came from behind them, Ryan turned around and saw the small Professor Flitwick staring in shock at the 4 people who suddenly appeared in the corridor. "We just went to rescue Mrs. Malfoy," Lane explained to Professor Flitwick, because everything that happened here starts with Mr. Malfoy's just abandoning the secrets. Although Professor Flitwick is a professor at the school and the Dean of Ravenclaw, he is not a member of the Order of the Phoenix. So Ryan explained to him the story he had fabricated. After listening to these introductions, Professor Flitwick nodded somewhat. "It's a war. It really needs you children to fight in blood. Of course you don't have to worry about what trouble this will cause you." Looking at Ryan's brows frowning on how to detract from Professor Duo's explanation tonight, Flitwick thought he was worried about killing the enemy just now. "I can be sure that these people who were killed just now are all fierce black wizards. No one will punish you for this matter." "Okay, now let's go downstairs together. The enemies in the Forbidden Forest have also retreated. I think the enemy's attack on Hogwarts is over today." After talking, Flitwick took the lead and walked downstairs, still whispering in his mouth when he went downstairs. "Severus, why do you? I heard that your mother and Snape signed an unbreakable vow. Can you tell me the content of the vow now?" Ryan asked Malfoy, who was walking beside him when he went downstairs. "It's a scar. Did Harry tell you?" After thinking about his current situation, Malfoy asked Ryan very simply when he asked him questions. "In fact, the content is very simple. Just let he protects my life, and does not hinder my actions while providing me with the help I can." It seems to be different from the original, Ryan thought, in the unbreakable oath of the original. He asked Snape to carry out what Voldemort had told Draco to accomplish, but it was not here. "I want to come here because Professor Dumbledore's physical condition is not the original one-year life, so the plan has been changed. I just don't know what method Snape will use to gain the trust of Voldemort this time." After arriving in the hall, Ryan found that the gate of the castle was still tightly closed. It seems that although the enemy has been withdrawn, Professor McGonagall still maintains the vigilance of the school to avoid being killed by the enemy. "It's a little late now, you still have a good rest." Professor McGonagall was standing in the hall wearing a green robe at this time, and arranged to see them after they went downstairs. Please let us professors deal with the rest. You have done a good job just now, and I am proud of you. Oh, Buck. Professor McGonagall whispered to the open space around him, and a house elf emerged from the air next to him with a crackle. The tea towel on the chest and the school badge with Hogwarts embroidered on it. Nice to serve you, Professor McGonagall. The house elf named Buck called out in a sharp voice. What do you have to tell Buck to do? Please take this Mr. Malfoy and his mother to the lounge. Professor McGonagall instructed that she could guess what Tryon had just persuaded when she looked at Mrs. Malfoy's situation. So she asked Malfoy to accompany her mother directly so that Mrs. Malfoy would not be too nervous when she woke up. No problem. This gentleman, please come with me. House elf Buck summoned 2 house elves with their fingers, and they used magic to hold Mrs. Malfoy firmly in front, and then took Malfoy together go to a room on the 2nd floor. They also returned to Gryffindor's common room. After waking up the fat lady to let them in, as soon as he entered the common room, Ryan saw that almost all of Gryffindor's classmates were standing in the common room and did not go to rest. What's going on outside now? The other commanders came back more than an hour ago. I heard that the attacker was repelled. Isn't that the case? Harry asked like a blast. Yes, that's how it is. It's safe now, and everyone can go to rest. Ryan exhorted everyone to watch everyone look at themselves with begging eyes. The enemies failed to cause any damage. This time, we won. Great. I know, no problem. www.mplnovel.com. Hogwarts is indeed the safest place. Thank you, Merlin, for your blessing. The students' expressions were relaxed in a noisy voice after coming down. They all walked to their dorms upstairs. After all, it's more than 12 midnight now, and everyone is already very sleepy. So after hearing everything is safe now, go back to bed. Only Harry and Ron stayed. After everyone left, they asked Tryon and Hermione what happened tonight. The offensive at the door is only used to disperse the power of Hogwarts. The real threat of the enemy is to try to bypass the magical protection of Hogwarts through one of the pair of disappearing cabinets in the request room to attack the Black Wizard and attack the school. Lane speaking briefly. I want the professors to tell you the specific situation. I can only tell you that I killed all the intruders with Hermione tonight. Now I have a good rest. Is that true? Sorry, I don't know. Harry felt the cruelty of the war, and then let go of the stairs to the dorm upstairs. As Ryan walked past him, he heard him whisper a thank you. Harry had always thought that fighting Voldemort and his stupid dogs was his bounden duty, but today he hid himself in a safe common room and watched his friends go to fight in the blood. So he thanked Tryon and Hermione for what he thought he was going to take risks and fight for instead. This war is not just yours, it's all of us. Lane stopped and looked at Harry's eyes seriously. So you don't have to say thank you to me. After speaking, Ryan turned and walked to the dormitory. For him, the long day was over, and he could finally take a good rest. Chapter 589, Treatment. After a day of fighting, Ryan had intended to sleep well, but his goal was not achieved, because he was awakened by a sharp voice in less than an hour of lying down. After opening his eyes, he saw Buck, the house elf who had just sent Malfoy mother and son to rest, standing beside him. What happened, Buck? Ryan asked with his arms propped up before looking at the watch on the head of the bed. It's only 1 o'clock in the morning. What happened? Professor McGonagall ordered me to take you. Buck, the house elf, said in a sharp voice. She asked you to bring everything you need when you cast the spell. Because now you need to save someone. Save people. Ryan was tense at once, and he quickly got up and tied the belt with a space belt on his body, and then said to the Buck after the school uniform robe was covered outside the nightgown. Hurry and take me to save people. Every second is important now. No problem, sir. Then Buck grabbed Ryan's arm and launched a phantom shift. After embodying the feeling of squeezing out of a small pipe, Ryan found himself in the school hospital. Mrs. Pomfrey, Professor McGonagall, Professor Flivy, Professor Sprout, and Professor Slughorn were surrounded by a bed in front of him. After hearing the sound in the ward, Professor McGonagall turned to look at Ryan. You are here, Ryan. Hurry up and see what happened to Professor Dumbledore now. From Professor McGonagall's tone, Ryan heard a trace of anxiety. What? It was Professor Dumbledore who was injured? Ryan walked quickly to the hospital bed and looked down. It was Professor Dumbledore who was lying on the bed. He was muttering something unconsciously in his mouth and his face turned blue. It doesn't look very good. How did Professor Dumbledore make it like this? Lane looked at the professors and asked. It's not Snape yet. Professor Flivy's expression was angry. He pretended that the person who reported to the school in the past gained Dumbledore's trust, and then suddenly attacked Deng in the Battle of Dumbledore and the mysterious man Bledo. As a result, Dumbledore was distracted by the mysterious man's curse at a critical moment. Fortunately, the Principal Dumbledore suppressed the curse and repulsed the mysterious man. But when he came back, he fell down. Mention you think you can save him. So we have called you now too. We have just used all the feasible solutions that we think, but Dumbledore has never woke up. Madame Pomfrey interjected. So we can only follow the instructions of the principal to see what you can do. It seems that Professor McGonagall found himself just now because the professors are completely gone, so he can only find Ryan as a student according to Dumbledore's last command. To put it bluntly, The professors didn't actually have much hope when they asked him to find him, that is, to grab the last life-saving straw with a dead horse as a living horse doctor. But Ryan did not feel that the professors were doing something wrong, because the difficulties now encountered are not like a problem that a young student can solve from any angle. He went to the head of the bed and checked Professor Dumbledore with his magic wand. After seeing the conclusion of the inspection magic feedback, he thought about it. He took out an Erlenmeyer flask from the space bag and put it on the bedside table. Then he took out 2 more the palm-sized glass bottle, pours the sulfur powder and mercury contained in it into the Erlenmeyer flask in a 1-to-1 weight ratio. Finally, he took out the pink Madonna of Roses and used it to draw an alchemy circle around the Erlenmeyer flask while chanting the spell. Under the influence of Our Lady of Roses, mercury and sulfur powder slowly mixed together, and finally turned into a bottle of bright red blood like medicine. This is an elixir of eternal life. Slughorn, the master potion master, instantly recognized what the potion was in Ryan's hand, and then looked at the little pink gem in Ryan's hand in shock. "This one in your hand is?" Slughorn finally asked, unable to bear his curiosity. "It's similar to what you think, but it's better to teach you now. I need to save people now." Ryan squeezed Slughorn away from Dumbledore's head a little impolitely. Slughorn didn't react when Ryan squeezed him away, just let Ryan push him away with a shocked face, and kept mumbling to himself. Ryan first raised Dumbledore's head high and raised the left hand to hold the Virgin Rose to read a spell in his face. At the same time, Mrs. Pomfrey was asked to help open Professor Dumbledore's mouth, and then raised the Erlenmeyer flask with her right hand to pour a cup of thick blood-red elixir into Dumbledore's mouth. After a moment, Dumbledore's eyelids flickered and opened. "You're finally awake, Albus. This is just great," Professor McGonagall said. "How do you feel now?" "Not very good." Dumbledore smiled a little. "But now I should be out of danger. Tom is stronger than I thought. This spell about life drawing almost killed my life. By the way, how about the school?" "Voldemort's attack did not succeed." "No." Professor McGonagall shook his head. "Mr. Liang and Miss Granger teamed up to kill all the intruders, and he just saved you with a strange potion." "Ah, Ryan, today I must say thank you." Dumbledore turned his head slowly and said to Ryan seriously. Then he said to everyone around him, "Okay, it's very late today. I think you are tired after a busy day, so everyone go to rest." Just as everyone was about to leave, Dumbledore said again, "Yes, Ryan, please stay with me. I want to discuss with you about the next treatment." After the professors had left, only Ryan was standing in front of Dumbledore's bed. After a few minutes of silence, Dumbledore unbuttoned his robe and looked at his chest. At this time, Ryan clearly saw a black mark like a spider's shadow on Dumbledore's chest, and even Ryan saw the mark as if it were alive. Although he felt that Voldemort was a curse imposed on Dumbledore when he was inspected by the Rosary Madam before www.mplnovel.com, but when he saw this curse with his own eyes, Ryan was still surprised. "Thank you for everything you just did, Ryan. How much time do you think I have?" Dumbledore's tone was casual, as if to ask how the weather would be tomorrow. "If you don't want to be hurt like this, I don't think it's a problem for you to live another 10 years, but you need to cooperate with my treatment and pay some price at the same time." "Ryan is raising the Virgin of Roses after Dumbledore's careful inspection of a few laps," he said firmly. Dumbledore smiled. "It's much better than I thought. I'm really lucky that I have students like you." "Okay, can you tell me what the price is?" "The ring finger of your left hand," Lane said. "I need to squeeze this curse on you into the ring finger closest to your heart from a mystical point of view through 7 consecutive days of casting, and then cast off your ring finger." "Sorry, this is already the smallest price I can come up with." "Solution." "It's okay. This is much better than I thought. I used to think that this curse only left me with a life of less than a year. It seems that your knowledge includes many blind spots in our current magic knowledge." Then Dumbledore blinked to Tryon slightly mischievously. "Loss of a ring finger is not unacceptable to me. At least at my current age I don't need to think about love for the time being." "Okay, this treatment process takes 7 days. I hope you will cooperate with my treatment 24 hours a day every day for the next week." Ryan told me seriously, "But you can tell me why you told Professor McGonagall before you coma." "Let me come." Chapter 590, Star. "This is an accident," Dumbledore said openly. "You know that I am the principal of Hogwarts. In Hogwarts Castle I have permission that no one else has. I can see all the public spaces in the school, and a while ago I felt the power of the magic stone in the school. As a result, after careful inspection, you discovered that you used a magic stone to turn an iron nail into a gold nail. That's why I asked Professor McGonagall to find you. You are the second alchemist I know who can make magic stones, and today before I was comatose, I could think of the elixir of things that could save me." Dumbledore knew what was going on as soon as Ryan said, "After the production of Our Lady of Roses." He was a bit overexcited at the time, but he didn't expect that Headmaster Hogwarts could monitor the school so much. The only gaffe was actually discovered. Of course, This is also too much related to the power of the magic stone. Ryan feels that if he does something else, he may not be discovered. So how do you know that I will save you with a magic stone? Ryan asked another question. Don't you worry that I'm just coming here for secrecy. I want to know that this is an elixir. I want to keep this. The secret is normal. Boy, I always think you are a good person. Professor Dumbledore sent Ryan a good person card directly. I have determined this since you helped Harry stop Voldemort's conspiracy in the first grade. So I believe you will be able to help me as long as there is a way to save me. Dumbledore paused a bit here, and then said, I know there are many in your heart that do not want to share secrets with others, but this is nothing. Everyone is the same. Even me is the same. Ryan, you do not need because having your own secrets is so careful in life. You only need to make sure that everything you do will not hurt others. As a young man, you should have a life that belongs to young people. You don't have to do anything like me. There are so many things to consider. That's because the secret I hid in my heart may be beyond your imagination, Ryan thought, but he didn't say it. But thanked the Principal Dumbledore for his concern and told he took a good rest and adjusted his body before leaving. Early the next morning, everyone got up early and rushed to the auditorium. This is not because everyone is in a hurry to eat, but because what happened last night made everyone very uneasy, so everyone wants the latest news. After entering the hall door, everyone looked at the seat in the center of the front table of the hall for the first time. After confirming that Professor Dumbledore was sitting there for dinner as usual, everyone seemed to relax a lot. Because no matter how dangerous things happen to students, as long as Principal Dumbledore is still there, everything will not be too bad. After eating, almost everyone stayed in their seats and looked at President Dumbledore, because everything that happened yesterday had spread throughout the campus. The infiltration and sneak attacks of Death Eaters, the defection of the professor, and the rumors outside that are more unfavorable and more rumored that the professor is injured or even killed. All this has made students who were uneasy because of the recent bad situation even more nervous, and even some people have already taken action. For example, this morning, when Ryan saw the father of Parvati's twin sisters, a head-covered Indian wizard took the two sisters away at dawn. Listen to Hermione that she saw Parvati Patil packing her suitcase when she returned to her dormitory last night. After going to bed, I heard that she told Lavender that her father actually planned to send her back to India after confirming that the mysterious man returned last year, only to consider that Hogwarts is the safest place in the UK. But today a tragedy happened here. 5 people have even died. So her father could not tolerate her daughter in such a dangerous environment, so she decided to take them back to India. At that time she also persuaded me to leave the United Kingdom to take refuge in other places, such as Tankau, because my family is in Tankau, and your bloodline can allow the magical world of Tankau to accept both of us. When eating breakfast, Hermione was like this said to Ryan. It seems that everyone is very upset now. Fortunately Dumbledore came out. Ryan looked at Dumbledore sitting there with admiration. He knew that even if he had given Dumbledore a full bottle of elixir yesterday while still using magic to control the curse, it would be better for the headmaster to lie there and rest completely. Otherwise the body would be hollowed out. The sense of powerlessness is not something that ordinary people can bear. He thought that Professor Dumbledore might have thought of this to endure pain and come out to eat to stabilize people's hearts. Quiet. After discovering that everyone was staring at each other without leaving after eating, Dumbledore knocked on the glass twice to signal that everyone was quiet, and then said, there are some things I think you already know. Yesterday Voldemort and his party leaders launched a full-scale attack, and even Hogwarts had enemies infiltrated. But we won. All the enemies have been expelled or eliminated. So rest assured, Hogwarts will continue to do so. I know someone may leave us temporarily because of parents' concerns or other reasons, but I send you guarantee, as long as there is a student who wants to come to school, the school will continue to run. And I will always be here to guide you as much as I can, help you, protect you. Slap, slap, slap. As soon as Dumbledore's words fell, the Gryffindor table was the first to applaud. Ryan, Harry, and Ron all applauded, and more people applauded. Applause finally echoed in the auditorium like thunder. Dumbledore's speech was still very effective. After that, only a few students left until evening. Most students still decided to stay in school to complete their studies, and they, like their parents, were full of confidence in the school and Dumbledore. It's just that Dumbledore didn't pay attention to this scene at this time. He was watching Ryan and Hermione lay out some strange things in front of him in his principal's office. These oil lamps, things that look like heaven. Professor Dumbledore is a very knowledgeable wizard, so after careful observation he saw what kind of magic Ryan used, but he didn't know Ryan what to do next. This is an ancient heavenly magic, which has a history of nearly 2,000 years, Lane said, putting a large oil lamp to his knee height in the middle of Dumbledore's office. At this time, the principal's office was completely different from the previous one, and the space below was completely emptied. 7 large oil lamps were placed on the ground according to the position of the Big Dipper, and 49 small oil lamps were arranged around. The oil lamp that Ryan just placed is the most important natal lamp in this magic ritual. It is placed in the middle of the entire magic circle. What should I do next? The sun was about to set. Watching Ryan and Hermione lighting the oil lamps mixed with immortal medicine 5 minutes ago and lit them. Professor Dumbledore asked in a purple robe standing on the second floor of the office. Next you need to connect your mind and the oil lamp in the center, and then read the above things in Mandarin. Then it is our business, Lane said, pulling a jade from the space bag for the sake of simplicity. Gold is handed over to the unfavorable headmaster who went downstairs with the inlaid gold characters www.mtlnovel.com. These are included. So after linking his mind and the oil lamp in the center according to Ryan's instructions, he sat down cross-legged and unfolded the jade in Mandarin with a straight tone. Albus was born in troubled times, Gan Lao in Quain. Although the overall atmosphere is very serious, when watching President Dumbledore reading these ancient essays in Mandarin, Ryan always felt some strange feelings. Fortunately, the sacrifice was not long, and he quickly read the last sentence. Fu Wang Shanxi, prostrate and listen. Qian servant, so that he can inherit the will of the heaven, save the lives of the people, restore the old things, and wipe out the traitors. As Dumbledore's voice fell, all the flames on the lamp slammed up. The jade in his hand instantly turned into green smoke and flew upward, and disappeared into the void before touching the roof. It's done, Ryan said to Dumbledore when he saw all the smoke disappeared. Next you only need to stay in the principal's office at sunset until sunrise, and make sure that these oil lamps will not go out. Please leave us with other things. Then please, Dumbledore said, standing up and returning to the desk, moved upstairs to start processing documents. Voldemort's massive attack caused Dumbledore, the #1 White Wizard, to work again recently. Greatly increased. Chapter 591, Variety. From the next day, Ryan and their classmates took the normal exams during the day and went to Dumbledore's office to perform magic at night. Fortunately, the two of them can spend an hour a day to sleep in other worlds, so these 7 days do not feel very hard. It should be over by tomorrow morning. When the time came on the evening of the 7th day, Dumbledore asked Ryan and Hermione, who were walking around the lamp array and waving their wands, to read the spell. Road. I can feel this curse is about to be compressed to the limit, said that. Dumbledore raised his left hand, and he could clearly see that the palm of the first half of his left hand had completely turned into an unknown dark green. I can feel that my 4 fingers can hardly move now. This curse is quite powerful. If it is not for you to block some of the magic power of this curse, after you come back and cure it in time, plus I have special targeted magic, it is estimated that your life expectancy will only be 1 or 2 years at most. Ryan said to Professor Dumbledore that the spell was actually the same as the one previously released by Voldemort on the ring, and even the accumulated lethality of Voldemort's experience was even greater. If Ryan made Notre Dame rose a while ago, go to the world of Mr. Zombie to visit Jushu. Later, in order to give Jushu a long face to represent Moshan's new generation of Taoism, after winning, he received Wa as the color of the Tao and the matching lamp. He really didn't take the curse on Dumbledore too much. Even if this curse is weakened by Dumbledore, it is still very tricky. Fortunately, Wuxing can just solve this problem perfectly. Even because Ryan needed to remove the curse instead of increasing the lifespan, the difficulty of this magic was greatly reduced, and there was no need to worry about some unexpected situations, such as someone suddenly rushing into the principal's office to kick the lamp over. Finally, the first morning light of the 8th day shone through the glass of the principal's room, dyeing everything in the room golden yellow. Dumbledore put his left hand on the natal lamp according to Ryan's request. At this time, the curse imposed by Voldemort has been compressed on the left ring finger of Principal Dumbledore. It can be seen that the left ring finger placed above the flame of the natal lamp has become skinny, and the entire finger has become dark black. At the same time, there was a trace of unknown black smoke outward. Please bear with me. Ryan finished pulling out the enemy fencing from the space bag and clasping his hands tightly, then cut it with a sword pointing at the cursed ring finger. A white light flashed through, and the ring finger fell straight down to the Dumbledore's natal lamp. However, the cursed finger did not fall into the lamp, and the flame in the lamp instantly changed into the shape of Ganoderma lucidum, holding the finger, and then all the lamps on the lamp spread violently in all directions. Connecting with the other, the flames formed a magic circle that surrounded Dumbledore. Everything is normal, Ryan explained, and at the same time directed the magic circle to continuously send the magic power into the natal lamp. After receiving reinforcements, the flame in the natal lamp quickly changed from red, yellow, to dazzling golden and white, and finally changed to sky blue. But even so, none of the 3 people close to the flame felt a trace of heat. Under the flame of the sky blue flame, the finger continuously released the dark green smoke. However, the smoke was surrounded by flames and then burned out. This stalemate lasted only 2 or 3 minutes, and finally the dark green smoke no longer appeared because of subsequent fatigue. After there was no smoke blocking, the flame quickly wrapped the finger, and within a few seconds, the finger turned into a ray of blue smoke and dissipated in the air. Everything is over. Professor, this magic ritual is very successful. The curse on you is completely resolved, Ryan said to the Principal Dumbledore after watching all the oil lamps on the floor slowly extinguish together. Thank you, and I really trouble you this time. Professor Dumbledore said after a long breath, I really thought I had only 1 year of life, and I really want to thank you for saving me this time. Speaking of where Dumbledore paused, he said very seriously. Also, I'm sorry that you had to face the enemy in school before. Since we are capable, there is nothing wrong with fighting the enemy. Hermione said, you can't let those dangerous characters reach the students who don't have the ability to fight. No, I mean I'm sorry to make you need to kill. It's always a terrible thing to deprive people of their lives. This should have been the responsibility of us adults. Unlike Ryan's thinking, as having experienced 2 brutal wars and now facing the old man in the third coup war, Dumbledore is not shy about killing the enemy. He just thought that this matter should only belong to the adults, and students like them should not bear it. Mr. Principal, as I told you before, we are not willing to choose war and killing. But now the situation is that these things will automatically find us. I think that in the next days we will probably sprinkle more blood, Ryan said. And I think we have the ability to face everything on a cruel battlefield. Well, I can't really treat you as ordinary children. Dumbledore did not persuade Ryan as before, but after a while thought, he seriously discussed with Ryan and Hermione. I can understand that you are fighting hard during the fight, and of course it is an extremely stupid way to consider keeping your hands when fighting. But I still hope that you will not be attracted by the killing and can stick to your own heart. We promise. After hearing Dumbledore's words, Hermione and Ryan clasped their hands together and nodded. Then Hermione said, we will only use the means of killing when necessary, and we can guarantee you every killing is to save more innocent lives. That's good. Dumbledore stared at Ryan carefully and looked at them carefully. He nodded comfortably after finding Ryan's eyes clear and firm. I am very glad that you have realized this, and hope that your soul will never be lost by the blood. After putting away all the oil lamps, Ryan and the principal said goodbye and left the principal's office. This time, there are 2 biggest gains for them. On the one hand, after successfully saving the life of Professor Dumbledore, the following days will be much better than in the original book. At the same time, it can attract Voldemort's sight to the greatest extent possible to ensure his safety. On the other hand, through the previous battles, treatment, and conversations with Dumbledore, Lane was truly recognized as a soldier with Hermione. In this case, it would be more convenient to do a lot of things. At least killing a Death Eater in a battle with a Death Eater would be considered acceptable. This is also a small problem of choosing to stand on the side of Dumbledore. Everyone is more disgusted with killing, even if the enemy is some sinful guy. This makes Lane and Hermione influenced by Lane feel a little unsuitable. www.mplnovel.com. Even in terms of the most basic principle of adaptation of crime, punishment and punishment, sometimes the philosophy of non-killing adhered to by some members of the Phoenix Society seems a bit pedantic. Fortunately, through a series of events today, Principal Dumbledore acquiesced in some actions of Ryan and Hermione so that they would not be handcuffed in the battle. This is very important, because unlike Dumbledore's wizards who have adapted to subdue their enemies without killing, the fighting instincts of Ryan and Hermione, which have been sharpened from the blood of the Corpse Mountains, would be very great if killing in combat is not allowed, not adapted. After falling behind in this matter, Ryan finally took a good rest for the next few days. During this time, some classmates tried to ask what happened that night, but Hermione told how she killed one. After the Death Eaters, these classmates stopped coming around to ask them. Even many classmates are subconsciously away from Ryan and Hermione. Only some of their friends and members of the book club still treat them as usual, which makes Ryan feel that the British magic world is still peaceful for too long, and the cruelty of the last war is also make everyone unwilling to get involved in the war again. It seems that the current situation is not enough to make people optimistic. It takes more time to prepare most people to fight Voldemort and his running dogs, and now what is lacking is time. Ryan at this time can only pray that the time for the full outbreak of war can be later and later. Chapter 592, End of School Term. Time just passed by in a tense atmosphere. The night before the holiday, Ryan finally learned from Lupin about the results of the 3 nuclear bombs he placed that night. Regrettably, no famous Death Eaters were killed in this explosion. Voldemort's side moved this disappearance cabinet to Crabbe's house instead of the previous Bergen box store before the operation, so the nuclear bomb in the trap finally exploded in his living room. However, the 6 wizards killed in this violent explosion and the wizard who was shattered and transported in the disappearance cabinet are just the scumbags that Voldemort recruited on the European continent a while ago. The only thing that is gratifying is that these scums are all covered with a lot of innocent lives. Ryan this time weakened the enemy's power and killed the people. But the hostess of the Crabbe family did not die, because before this operation Voldemort cleaned up all the people in Crabbe's ancestral home, and no other outsiders existed in the house except the personnel. Of course, the main building of the Crabbe family's ancestral house was completely destroyed in this explosion. In addition, the Crabbe family was buried in the fire and all the treasures of the Crabbe family as a pureblood family for hundreds of years. This includes the most important inheritance of family magic knowledge. This means that the family was washed white at one time, and at least in the next 100 years, they will be excluded from the circle of pureblood. So the attack on Voldemort's side, at least from a tactical point of view, was a complete failure. It was enough to take 12 lives. This also led to the 2 Malfoy mothers and sons who were temporarily staying in Hogwarts Castle because they knew that Voldemort could never let them go. Ryan had seen Malfoy wandering in the hallway with pale and uneasy expression, but left immediately after seeing Ryan, and his mother Mrs. Malfoy hardly even appeared in front of the people, but the house elf brought her food. Most people think that this time is a great victory, and Professor Dumbledore can still shelter them so that everything is the same as before. But Ryan knew that nothing could go back. This time Voldemort attacked the Ministry of Magic and Hogwarts at the same time. If Ryan had set up a backhand in the school in advance, Voldemort's side could even retreat. This already shows that the contrast between the strengths and weaknesses of the two sides has changed. Ryan can even infer that this action was only a temptation by Voldemort. The next time, it will be a real total war. Even if Professor Dumbledore is not good enough to live normally, it is impossible to change this situation. It was just like the gunshot in Sarajevo that year. It can only be said that the death of the Austro-Hungarian crown prince induced the World War. But it cannot be said that the cause of the war was because of this assassination. Even if the assassination failed, the fierce conflicts between the Allies and the Allies would always break out completely because of other incidents. The same is true of the magic world. Most pureblood wizards hope to take back everything they have been deprived of for more than a decade after the defeat of the last war, and even bring the magic world back to the era when everything was controlled by pureblood. The increasing number of hemp seed and hybrid wizards on the one hand must retain their existing rights, on the other hand, they hope to break the current situation of the pure control of pureblood wizards in the British magic world. So Ryan believes that the next war is not only inevitable, it may even be more cruel than the original one, because this time the two sides are evenly matched. To resolve disputes can only rely on a real war. Scrimgeour of the Ministry of Magic also discovered this point. Recently, many people have seen Scrimgeour limping on crutches to Hogwarts and Professor Dumbledore to discuss plans for the latest situation. But from every time he left angrily, it can be seen that the negotiation was not smooth. Of course, this is also normal. Let us not say Scrimgeour is a person who only respects himself. The Ministry of Magic is now almost completely controlled by the pureblood of Voldemort's side, which makes the cooperation between the two parties impossible. After touching a nose from Professor Dumbledore, Scrimgeour tried to win Harry Potter. He suggested that the Ministry could provide Harry with various protections, such as arranging Tuarers as his bodyguards. But Harry declined all of them. I can't accept a magic minister who puts the innocent in Azkaban but insists that he is a Death Eater. Not to mention that I think Principal Dumbledore is more credible, because tomorrow is going to be a holiday. Everyone looks today it was very relaxing, and after packing up, everyone started to sit in the common room and start chatting. This time Harry talked about what he had encountered these days. Oh, how are you going to spend this holiday? After talking about what he had encountered in the past few days, Harry raised his head and asked Ryan and Hermione sitting opposite him looking at a large black stone book. We might go to Tankow first. Professor Dumbledore asked us to go to Tankow to do something. Ryan raised his head and replied, this was stated in the letter sent by the principal yesterday by Fox. In anticipation of the outbreak of war in the future, Dumbledore believes that it is necessary to contact various countries now in the hope of obtaining as much assistance as possible. Even if there is no assistance, other countries should be kept as neutral as possible in future wars. The lineage and identity of Ryan is the most convenient one among the people he knows to contact with the Heavenly Dynasty, so the task of contacting the Heavenly Dynasty was handed over to Ryan. Of course, Ryan is willing to accept this task because Dumbledore pointed out in the letter that the Heavenly Magic World has always maintained a completely neutral attitude on such things that have nothing to do with them, so Ryan's visit to the dynasty this time is only a routine confirmation. It happened that he and Hermione could also take this opportunity to visit their parents. In addition to Ryan, several other members of the Order of the Phoenix were sent to the United States, France, and Africa. They will all carry out their mission of external communication at the beginning of the holiday and do their best to prevent Voldemort from carrying out the same action. It sounds great, international travel, Harry exclaimed with wide eyes, and then the whole person collapsed on the sofa in frustration. Unfortunately, I will stay at my aunt's house until the 17th birthday according to Dumbledore's order this holiday. Seriously, I really don't want to go back there. I really want to do something with you. Harry, in fact, you can tolerate loneliness and hide yourself. Protecting yourself is already the greatest help for us. Hermione closed the book at this time and then looked at Harry and said, you need to know that you are equivalent to a banner, but your strength, there is a distance compared to your role as a banner. I know. Harry lowered his head, his hands covered his face and sniffed his nose loudly, then raised his head and smiled reluctantly. You are right, everyone is what they should do, and I really can't do it wantonly. Don't worry, buddy, I believe you can make a contribution even if you stay at your aunt's house. Ron snapped Harry's shoulder with carelessness and said www.mplnovel.com and then looked at Ryan sitting opposite him. And Hermione. Oh, how long do you have to stay there this time? Well, at most 2 weeks, Ryan said after thinking for a while. Because my mission to Tankow is very easy this time, it won't take long. And I still have a lot of things to do on the British side, so this time I can't go to Tanko for too long. That would be great, Ron said. Neither of you, nor Harry can just come to my parents' house. Why? Harry looked confused. Bill and Furong's wedding, Lupin and Tunk's wedding, Sirius and Milim's wedding. Ron counted his fingers. They are going to have a wedding this summer, so after discussing it, they decided to have a wedding together in the burrow. Have a lot of fun. Don't you know these? Of course I know Bill and Fleur's wedding, Harry said, but I really don't know if Lupin and Sirius are getting married at this time. It is estimated that they will pinch a bit and will not send us invitations until a month before the wedding. Ryan thought about Lupin and Sirius' character and thought that the two of them were really able to come out. In this way, it is estimated that their guests will be much less at the wedding, but Ryan feels as long as they are happy. In any case, it is always pleasant to have such a golden day before the brutal war is about to erupt. Chapter 593, Visit. Early the next morning, Ryan took the packed luggage to Hogsmeade Station. When he came to the platform, he was surprised to find that many people appeared on the station that was usually only open at the beginning of the semester and the end of the semester. Many of them looked like they came over with their mouths and dragged big baggage. Because of the conflict that broke out last time, some people are moving from dangerous London to Hogsmeade. They think it is closer to Hogwarts and can be safe under Professor Dumbledore's shelter. So today Hogwarts when Swift came from London, he also brought the wizards who were planning to move in. Susan Burns whispered the information he received from relatives at the Ministry of Magic. It seems that everyone is a little nervous now, and I hope that the situation will not get worse, Ryan said after helping Hermione put the suitcase on the luggage rack. At this time, Hermione found it in the last carriage of the train. I sat in an empty box, but just after the train started, someone knocked on the door of the carriage. Why did someone knock on the door so early? Ryan opened the door a little bit puzzled, and unexpectedly found that Harry and Ginny were standing outside the door. The rest of the train was full, and we finally found it here, Harry said to Ryan as he helped Ginny with her luggage. There are more than a dozen Aurors on the train today, and each car has 2 Aurors patrolling, so everyone gets a box as soon as they get on the train. Like we come a little late, it is difficult to find an empty box. It seems that the Ministry of Magic is not doing nothing at all. Hermione said that there were just 2 Aurors with magic wands walking in front of their boxes. Just don't know if Tunks will be in the car. It should not be. Harry shook his head, because Sirius told me through a double-sided mirror just before getting on the train that Tunks has been patrolling diagonally for the most recent period, and today it was the mobile forces in the Auror office that were sent to the Hogwarts Express. Right, I have something to tell you. Harry looked at the outside of the box and nodded everyone, and then whispered when everyone came over. Do you know that Malfoy and his mother will live at 12 Grimmauld Place during this time? What? Are you kidding me? Ginny and Hermione exclaimed. They never thought that the two of Malfoy's mother and son could actually live in 12 Grimmauld Place, the headquarters of the Order of the Phoenix. I'm not kidding. Harry was also depressed, because according to the principal's arrangement, he would have lived at number 12 Grimmauld Place after the wedding in the burrow before the start of school. Thinking about sharing the roof with Malfoy, who had been blind to him since entering school, Harry felt uncomfortable all over the next month. But Sirius told me it was Dumbledore's decision. I think it should also be very reasonable, Ryan said after thinking for a while, and the sight of the 3 people in the box dropped on him. If I remember correctly, should Malfoy's mother be Sirius' cousin? In this case, she is already homeless, so it is normal to return to her previous home at this time. The problem is, Malfoy is a Death Eater, Ginny said nervously. I think it's not safe just because of relatives. Don't worry about this, Ryan said. Now Malfoy can only rely on us, because if his current situation is found by a mysterious person or a Death Eater, he will die. I think that Malfoy should now join us in hoping that the mysterious person will be eliminated soon. Indeed, Voldemort is not a wizard who treats his subordinates. Harry smiled with relief after thinking about it. So, I think I just have to ignore them, and they should think so. The next journey passed in a relaxed chat, mainly because Harry and Ginny listened to Ryan about their various experiences in the last visit to the Heaven. After the train arrived at the station, when Ryan got off, she saw Sirius standing on the platform to pick up the station. After an awkward relative silence, Sirius gestured helplessly as Narcissa Malfoy and Draco Malfoy walked with him. I guess Klitsch may be a little happier. After watching the first meeting of the Black family siblings in so many years, Ryan made his own comment. It seems that Sirius is still a gentleman. At least no 2 people quarreled directly on the platform. In the following time, Ryan and Hermione quickly packed the suitcase into the space bag and took out the 2 trolley boxes at the same time. After that, they left the 9 3/4 platforms side by side and took the subway to Heathrow Airport. Fortunately, President Dumbledore prepared the necessary air tickets and visas for them so that they could fly directly to Tankow. Why don't we just phantom shift past? We can support this kind of intercontinental travel with our present magic power. There were not many people on the subway at this time, so Hermione asked Ryan quietly. It's a kind of rude practice to transfer phantoms directly to the other country's land, mainly in the magic world. At the same time, after going to the Heavenly Dynasty, we still have a lot of time to use for what is done in the world of ordinary people over there. If only I am fine with myself. but you as a European are still very conspicuous on Tankau Street. If there is no legal immigration process, it will be very troublesome. After disembarking from the Pearl International Airport, Ryan presented Professor Dumbledore's letter and explained his intention to the staff of the Tanzhou Alchemy Federation at the Pearl International Airport. Tanzhou's work is much faster than expected. One of the alchemists came out soon after entering an office and told Ryan that they could use Yunlu to go to the headquarters of the Tanzhou Alchemy Federation in Cheng'an in the morning to submit this letter. After thanking the staff member, Ryan was a little curious about how he contacted the Alchemy Federation headquarters, because the distance from Pearl City to Cheng'an is farther than the distance from the southernmost part to the northernmost part of the British island. Ordinary animals must not be able to send letters so fast, and expensive alchemy products like double-sided mirrors are unlikely to have such a large popularity. www.mtlnovel.com. Of course it is a telephone. The older alchemist gave Ryan a strange look and said, "Could there be another way? Like the method of writing letters more than a decade ago, is really too slow, especially for this long distance the situation of communication. But a few days ago, I heard a professor at Tanzhou Alchemist College say that they are trying to change the mobile phone to be usable by alchemist. Maybe you will see it next time you come from the UK." Hearing people say that it is more convenient than the landline. The degree of conservatism in the British magic world is more than a little bit, or to be precise, the British wizards pretended that they could not see the changes in the outside world. Ryan thought after listening to the Heavenly Alchemist, and most of these the reason can be attributed to the unconventional ideas of the pureblood wizards and the suppression of non-pureblood wizards who do not exclude technology. I hope everything will be better after the war. Long-distance travel is a very tiring thing, even for people whose physical strength and energy are beyond mortal. After a 12-hour flight plus a dozen minutes of baggage clearance and negotiations, at 4:30 p.m. local time, Ryan finally pulled Hermione, who had begun to doze, out of the Pearl International Airport. On the way to the scheduled hotel, Hermione even fell asleep, leaning directly on Ryan's shoulder. So after arriving at the hotel, the two men rinsed off and went to bed quickly. They didn't even eat dinner. Chapter 594, Bad News. At about 7 o'clock the next morning, Ryan and Hermione finally yawned and got out of bed. After sleeping for more than 10 hours, they finally reversed the jet lag, and after simply tidying up and heading to the hotel's restaurant for a breakfast buffet, the two came to Songjiangja again using the Yunlu station there. Cheng'an. Different from the Tanzhou Alchemist Academy in the center of Cheng'an, the headquarters of the Tanzhou Alchemy Federation is located on a small highland in the northeast corner of Cheng'an. After leaving Yunlu station, the two people walked north along Danfeng Street for 7 or 8 minutes, and they came to Danfeng Square. The largest square inches Cheng'an. The most attractive thing on the square is the 6 huge copper figures standing on each side of the square. Each of these copper figures has a height of about 10 meters. As an alchemist, Ryan can feel that these bronze figures are not just decorations, but also a powerful magical puppet. Has extremely powerful magic and physical dual combat capabilities. These bronze figures have been more than 2,000 years old, but they still look very spectacular. They stood quietly on both sides of the square. Regardless of changes in the outside world, the vicissitudes of the sea kept guarding the place quietly. Is the Emperor's 12 bronze men? This should represent the heritage of a magical world that has been passed on for thousands of years. Lane stopped and carefully looked at these national treasures even heard of in previous lives for several minutes, until after Hermione began to urge him, he went on. After passing through the Denfingmen guarded by heavily armed Tanka wizards, Lane finally entered the headquarters of the Alchemy Federation surrounded by high red walls. Without high walls blocking the view, Ryan discovered that unlike the underground buildings of the British Ministry of Magic, the headquarters of the Alchemy Federation of the Celestial Dynasty was built in a small group of palaces in the traditional Oriental classic style. He could see buildings built around a small hill, and the 9 large palaces at the top should be the Hanyuan Hall used as the conference hall of the Alchemy Federation. Of course, Ryan does not need to go there for their work today, and the main hall will only be opened during major events or meetings. We followed the signs to bypass the tall halls lined up on the central axis and came to a small courtyard east of Hanyuan Hall. When Ryan entered the door, he glanced at the words Hongyun Temple on the plaque. Hongya Temple? Why do we come to this religious occasion? Hermione asked curiously after seeing the words on the door plaque. Religious occasion? What religion? Ryan, who was asked this question, was confused, and he quickly realized that he came and laughed. In the Tang Dynasty, not all places with the word temple are religious occasions, especially for the wizards of the Tang Dynasty. They have inherited many old nouns. For example, Hongyun Temple is equivalent to our International Department of Magical Cooperation. That's right. Hermione smiled a little embarrassedly. She used to use the memory in Ryan's hand to instill mechanistic Mandarin. So the mastery of this language is still not satisfactory. After entering the gate of Hongya Temple, Lane told the old alchemist in the communication room beside the gate. The old man with a beard comparable to Dumbledore's white beard checked the black leather notebook in front of him and said, "Is Mr. Liang and Miss Granger from the UK? Your appointment is indeed here." After entering the door for a while, turn left directly into the second house, and Master Li is already waiting for you there." "Thank you." Ryan thanked the portier uncle of the Tanzhou Alchemy Association and went to the place he just pointed out. After entering the door, he found that there was not only Master Li in the room, but also a few who seemed quite identified. "Alchemist." After Ryan submitted his handwritten letter from Dumbledore, a middle-aged man in a navy blue tunic took the letter and read it from beginning to end. Then he asked his own question. "Mr. Liang, from the information we have obtained, the situation in the British wizarding world is very bad. So can you tell us your opinion about the current situation of the British wizarding world?" "Of course, but I think that my qualifications and knowledge are probably very thorough. I can only make some simple judgments through my personal experience," Lane said to the old man wearing a dark blue tunic. His chest, the front badge shows the old man surnamed Wang. "This is enough. In fact, we now need this first-hand information from the British magic world, because there are other reasons for ethnicity. We have very few people across Europe, and many news can only be passed through others. The narrative is obtained, and the information is basically some second-hand information that has been distorted or modified. This gives us no accurate and complete understanding of the current status of the British magic world." Another young man in a black tunic next to him said. His badge tells Ryan that he is Master Li. "Since that is the case, then I will talk about it casually." Ryan looked at the officials of the Tanzhou Alchemy Federation sitting here. "I personally feel that the current state of the British magic world is very bad, or that it is now on the verge of a war, and the war will be a long full-scale war that may sweep across Britain and even Europe." Ryan did not think that the Tan dynasty would not even see this obvious trend, so he simply said this thing. At the same time, he did not forget to fight for the benefits for himself and Dumbledore. "Of course, I think that although Voldemort's side has a greater advantage now, neither their goals nor their war potential are as good as our principal Dumbledore's side, so I believe that the person who will ultimately win this war will be us. When it comes to war goals, we really dislike the slogan with a strong racist style proposed by the guy named Voldemort over there. Once they win, things will become very bad." The middle-aged alchemist Wang when the other alchemists nodded their heads in support of his point of view. "But the problem now is that Voldemort's war potential is not as small as you think. But on the Voldemort side are pureblood wizards, and their number is not very large, although there are some foreign Death Eaters, but I don't believe that too many people can be recruited by Voldemort." Lane wrinkled, frowning. He had an unknown hunch. "Unfortunately, this is not the case." Master Li shook his head. "Have you ever thought that if Voldemort has enough money to hire people, because of the problems that occurred in Eastern and Southern Europe a few years ago, there are countless poor wizards there. I believe that as long as there is money, Voldemort can hire to enough desperados. But they should have no money." Hermione, standing behind Ryan, said, a little puzzled. "I have surveyed those pureblood families before. They do have a lot of wealth, but most of them are not at all ways to give someone else's property, magic props, or knowledge. There is not much gold that can really be used to hire people." "Theoretically this is the case, Miss Granger." "Even 24 hours ago," Master Li said. "But according to information we intercepted, the Guling Court in the United States passed a secret decree last night that allowed British wizards to borrow unrestricted pots in the United States, and these were used as collateral before the repayment date of wealth still belongs to borrowers." "What do American wizards do?" Ryan frowned, knowing that because of the previous Rappaport laws www.mtlnovel.com many American wizards were more inclined to support pureblood wizards, opposed and not magic human contact. So even if they tend to Voldemort, it is normal. However, the promulgation of this apparently partial party law is still beyond Ryan's expectations, because the practice of betting on a party before the war broke out is very strange, especially for powerful forces like the U.S. Magic Congress. "I think that Americans may want to make this war more tragic," Master Li said. "For a long time, Britain was the core of the magic world in Europe and even in the West, and even the American magic world imitated it. The magic world of Britain has taken shape, but after a long period of development, the American wizarding world has developed into a powerful force no less than that of the British wizarding world. We believe that American wizards hope that this war will completely destroy the British wizarding world so that they can replace the position of the British wizarding world in the world. For the group of American wizards, if they succeed, they will become the real leaders of the Western magic world, and by the way, they can inherit the essence of the British wizarding world. Even if they fail, they can delay the development of the British wizarding world and gain a lot of wealth. So yesterday it is inevitable for the Guling Pavilion to pass this decree," added the alchemist Wang. "This is awful." Ryan and Hermione glanced at each other, and both saw an anxious look in each other's eyes. They must tell President Dumbledore these news and ask him to prepare in advance. Chapter 595. Protocol. "Thank you for telling us this news." Ryan thanked the officials of the Tanzhou Alchemy Federation present. "I think we should inform Professor Dumbledore about this matter as soon as possible." "Please wait." The older wizard who was sitting on the throne who had not spoken before saw Ryan when they were about to leave. "Please tell Mr. Dumbledore that we have the same idea with him in facing an evil attitude. We are willing to cooperate with him in many ways. I hope he can come over and talk to us personally. Maybe some cooperation can be reached." "Thank you, We will notify him as soon as we go back. Ryan thanked the officials of the Tanzhao Alchemy Federation sitting here again, and then left here with Hermione. I'm curious why the Wizards of the Heavenly Dynasty have just hinted that we can help us. After walking out of the door of the headquarters of the Heavenly Alchemy Federation, Hermione asked Ryan. This is very normal, Ryan explained. Because for the Wizards of the Heavens, it is the best to maintain the balance of the European and American magic circles. Otherwise, once the entire Western magic world is fully unified under the leadership of the U.S. Magic Congress, the next headache is for the Tanzhao Wizards. So they will support us to defeat the mysterious people as soon as possible, so as to ensure the power of the British magic world and maintain the balance between the three parties. After listening to Ryan's words, Hermione suddenly understood why the Heavenly Wizard world should take the initiative to propose help them. Anyway, this is a good thing for us now. I think we should promptly notify Professor Dumbledore. Yes, because only President Dumbledore is qualified to make the final decision. Ryan probably guessed why these things were not in the original text at this time. Because at this time in the original text, Professor Dumbledore was already dead. Everyone with a clear eye could see that Voldemort was about to become the ruler of Britain. For Americans, this represents the decline of the British magic world. Naturally, there is no need to provide additional funds for Voldemort. Besides, at this time, Voldemort's side can be said to be talented. Many black wizards and Death Eaters followed him. There are also giants, eight-eyed giant spiders and dementors as allies. It is not necessary to recruit foreign black wizards as thugs, as it is seriously understaffed as it is now, and naturally does not need so much cash. Therefore, at this time, the United States should try its best to recruit wizards who had escaped from Europe in order to avoid Voldemort, and the Wizards of the Heavens could not find assistance because of the death of Dumbledore. Object. Therefore, it can only imitate the sorcerers in the United States to recruit sorcerers who have escaped from Europe in order to reach a balance with the United States. But everything has changed now, and Ryan just wants to go to the post office to tell Dumbledore this news. I hope he can quickly come to solve this problem and bring more assistance to him through negotiations. Although the Wizards of the Celestial Dynasty did not use owls as their messengers, Ryan had some concerns that it was not easy to contact the United Kingdom. Especially, this visit to Celestial was originally a routine job, so the principal did not give Ryan an instant channel of contact. However, the remote communication methods used by the Wizards of the Heavenly Dynasty greatly exceeded Ryan's expectations. After arriving at the Chang'an Post and Telecommunication Station according to the street signs, he found that the place looked more modern than the Owl Post Office in the diagonal lane. In addition to a few pigeon-sized cyan birds in the corner, there are telephone booths in the cubicles next to each other, and facing them is a dozen service windows separated by glass. Lane came to the window marked with international communications and asked, "When do I now hope to send the fastest long-distance mail to the UK?" "In 5 minutes, your letters will be sent to our telegraph station in Antwerp by Alchemy Telegram, and then you will use the owl to deliver to the place you want to deliver," said the staff member in a uniform suit vest and white shirt. "A copper plate for every 3 words, or a copper plate for every 6 letters if it is English, punctuated at half price. There are pens and ink on the table over there, and you can write what you want to post there." "Thank you." Ryan finished talking to Hermione and finished writing a letter to Dumbledore. The above said only vaguely that the scheduled plan was completed, but there was further need for negotiations on the part of the Heaven and the North. "Hope that Professor Dumbledore can come a trip." Then the letter was handed over to the counter along with 3 gold coins, 2 silver coins and 7 copper coins. 5 minutes later, after confirming that the owl carrying this letter had left Antwerp, Ryan and Hermione left the Chang'an Post and Telecommunication Office. Professor Dumbledore came much faster than expected. When Ryan and Hermione were hanging out on a commercial street in Chang'an at about 5 in the afternoon, a blue bird flew towards them and dropped a letter for them. This letter was written by Dumbledore, telling Ryan that he received a letter from them at noon and arranged a little bit before using them as plane. "I hope they can inform the Tanzhao Alchemy Federation here to prepare for the reception. Principal Dumbledore, come by plane?" Hermione looked at the flight number attached to it and was shocked. "I thought he would choose to ride his own Phoenix or Phantom to move over." "Maybe this is to go into the village to follow the customs," Lane said. "You need to know that the Wizards of the Celestial Empire have always been very resentful of those who use magic to teleport into the country without authorization, so Dumbledore should hope to follow the customs here to facilitate further conversations in order to reach certain contracts that are beneficial to us." After notifying the arrival time of Professor Dumbledore's flight, the tasks of Ryan and Hermione were over. In the following time, they began to soak in the Tanzhao Alchemist Academy in Chang'an according to the original plan. After making the Madonna Rose, Ryan had the confidence to come up with more advanced knowledge for trading. 3 days later, while Ryan and Hermione were looking at the notes left by an alchemist named Zongqiu in the Tanzhao Alchemist Academy, fighting with various evil creatures, Professor Dumbledore appeared in front of them. "Professor, why are you here?" Ryan looked up and noticed Professor Dumbledore who was standing at the table. "Ah, I'm here to say goodbye to you. www.mcnovel.com. Professor Dumbledore smiled and punched his white beard. The result of this negotiation was very good, and I think Moody's imitated me for 3 days. It's the limit, and then I'm worried that Voldemort will find that I am not in the UK, so I should go back quickly. What agreement have you reached with the Heavenly Magic World this time? Hermione asked curiously. Of course, you don't need to say it if you think we are not fit to know. There is nothing unsuitable for knowing. Dumbledore shook his hand with a smile. After the negotiations, the wizards of the Heavenly Dynasty secretly passed the promotion of the defense of the alchemist of the Heavenly Dynasty. This bill stipulates that they can sell, exchange, transfer, and rent to the forces that are considered to have great significance for the safety of the Heavenly Dynasty, provide magic props, raw materials, daily necessities and other necessities that may be needed in war. It sounds useless. Hermione looked puzzled. No, it works. Ryan saw what was hidden in the law. I think the power in this decree that is of great significance to the security of the heaven is us, which means that we can use the loan to obtain the resources we need, which can just offset the wealth of pureblood on the side of the mysterious person advantage. Yes, it is. Professor Dumbledore nodded. Okay, I wish you a happy holiday here, and remember not to forget to attend the wedding at Weasley's. Chapter 596, New Equipment. Ryan and Hermione did not spend too much time in Tankau, even shorter than their scheduled time. After spending half a month reading the books they wanted to read and visiting their loved ones, they took the plane back to the UK again. Don't be sad. At least our parents are safe here. Ryan comforted Hermione, who felt a little sad because she needed to say goodbye to her parents again. Now Britain can be said to be a mess. I'm glad our parents moved ahead to heaven. Ryan did not say this just to comfort Hermione. Even if they could see the news of the recent collapse of the building or the derailment of the train in the UK, the only thing that was fortunate was that these Death Eaters made it possible because of Dumbledore's deterrent. The number of terrorist attacks was much less than that of the original text, but 2 attacks on Voldemort appeared at the scene of the attack and openly provoked the Ministry of Magic and the Principal Dumbledore, which further exacerbated the British magic world and even the European magic world turmoil. Especially in the train derailment accident, Voldemort appeared at the scene and waited for an elite Era squad to rush to the front and directly defeated the Era squad. Then, before Dumbledore arrived, the Phantom was shaken. Go away. This scene reminded those who survived the last war of Voldemort's horror once again, and naturally the morale of the British wizards dropped greatly. Ryan felt this clearly after they returned to London, even because the terrorist attacks created by Death Eaters filled the British mole world with a low mood. Everyone seems to be in a hurry when walking on the road, even if the Dementors have suffered heavy losses in the last attack made by the puppets, and they dare not show up until now, but the whole city is still sucked by the Dementors. Like happiness. Let's go home first. Even now it's summer, London makes people feel a kind of cold from the bones. Hermione felt a chill involuntarily after feeling the atmosphere on the street, and then raised herself suggestions. Aren't you going to see Sirius first? Ryan probably guessed why Hermione didn't want to visit Sirius as planned. Also, I always see him when he attends his wedding. After returning to their manor, the 2 men first sorted out the knowledge they had gained from going to Tankau for a few days, and then began to consider giving wedding gifts to the 3 new couples. Unlike Tankau's red envelopes, they have different habits, and at the same time, they have different habits of keeping the price of wedding gifts secret when giving wedding gifts. Ryan and Hermione received their wedding invitations and the gift list attached to the wedding invitations during the Heavenly Dynasty. This thing is translated as a gift list, which lists the gifts that new people want. Because Ryan and Hermione have a good relationship with the 3 couples who participated in the wedding, and the wedding of the 3 couples was held at the same time and the same place, they need to consider giving gifts to the 3 people. When giving gifts, the value is almost the same. The things we sent with our relationship must not be too bad, especially now that I am also an alchemist. Even if the gifts are more general, it will seem too careless. Ryan scratched his head and seemed a bit distressed. In fact, the habit is exactly the same as that of the Heavenly Dynasty. What kind of person will give what kind of gift? Whether the grade is over or not is very inappropriate. But this is not the thing that bothers him the most. For Ryan now, the wedding gift can be put back temporarily, because the situation is very bad now, so his priority task at this time is to make himself able to use Rose's alchemy props of Our Lady. Although in most cases, the magic props of the Harry Potter world are the toys sold by the Weasley twins, they basically cannot control the direction of the war, so most wizards usually use a magic wand to solve all problems. But not all magic items are like this. For example, in the history of the old wand Grindelwald, the various struggles between Dumbledore and Voldemort illustrate the importance of a top alchemy from the side. The reason why Ryan chose to make this level of alchemy props on the one hand is that the upcoming war requires him to use such a powerful prop for self-defense, and on the other hand because the Madonna Rose in his hand is in Alness control of alchemy. The rules are made, it has the potential to become this level of alchemy props. Of course, the production of this level of alchemy props is very difficult. Fortunately, the piece of Our Lady of Rose on hand is equivalent to his associated treasure. Therefore, for Ryan, The alchemy props to be produced are equivalent to the magic weapon of the fairy worlds, and the production difficulty will be much smaller. At the same time, the alchemy props made by this Madonna of Roses may not be very powerful at the beginning, but he can grow slowly with Ryan. He believes that one day he will grow to the level of the old wand. Are you going to make your new magic prop now? Hermione raised her head from a list of goods ordered by owls, because it is more and more dangerous to go shopping outside recently, so this is not enough. Owl Express is becoming more and more popular, and Hermione is now looking to see if there is anything that she needs. Well, I'm going to teach Luo Zen now, Ryan said after putting on his robe. That's right, Hermione asked seriously, as if she had thought of what she had put down the owl's order advertising. Do you think about what kind of prop you want to make that Lady Virgin? Not yet. Ryan scratched his head embarrassedly. At first I wanted to make a magic wand, but then I felt that just a magic wand was not enough. I wanted a weapon that could be cast like a magic wand and used for melee combat like my sword. Later on, I felt like a wizard we are too thin, and the defense capabilities may be insufficient. I want the new product to have enough defense capabilities. As a result, after this pile of requirements piled together, I found out that I no longer know what to do, so I can only find Teacher Luo Zen asked for help. It sounds like a less happy story, Hermione said after shrugging. Well, I wish you all the best this time, and we will see you in an hour. See you in an hour. Lane leaned forward and kissed Hermione sitting on the sofa, then opened the door to the world of the Rose Girl. Hermione stood up on the sofa to take a shower after reading the advertisement, and then went to the kitchen to prepare lunch. An hour later, when Hermione put the prepared homemade frozen meat pickled cucumber sandwich and a pot of hot tea on the table while on board, Ryan also walked out of the space door with a tired look and appeared in the living room. How long have you been there this time? It feels like you are all tired now. Hermione took Ryan's robe on the hanger and said, it's only half a month, and most of the time is used for design. The time for real hands-on production is 3 days. Ryan said with a smile. Actually, my previous thoughts are all foolish. www.mplnovel.com Madonna Rose doesn't actually need to be equipped with anything when using it. Nothing is needed. What's going on? Hermione asked curiously. Because Our Lady of Roses is the fifth element other than earth, water, fire and wind, and a small universe corresponding to the big universe. It contains the roots of everything, and natural energy can have an impact on matter, flesh, and even the soul. Ryan said to summon Rose Notre Dame. Hermione saw a pink light burst out of Ryan's heart, and then turned into a pink gem of the size of a baby's fist suspended above his head. Although it is much like a magic stone, the principles and power contained therein are much stronger than the magic stone. Because of these characteristics of Our Lady of Roses, it can become anything I need. With Ryan's explanation, his right hand suddenly disappeared from the top of Ryan's head, and then showed various weapons. So for such a long time, I actually understood how to use the Virgin Rose and integrate it with my soul, making it an extension of myself. I don't need to fix it at all. It sounds very powerful. Although I don't understand very well, it can help you a lot if I can hear this. Hermione nodded slightly. But you better take a shower and have lunch now. I have prepared lunch. Chapter 597, Debate. With Hermione's help, Ryan spent only 3 or 4 days to make a wedding gift for the 3 couples. In the process, he discovered that Our Lady of Roses is indeed a very powerful alchemy product, especially when used to assist in the production of alchemy products. Compared with this, the gain it can provide in combat is not so important. The time soon came to the end of July, and nothing happened in the middle. At this time, Voldemort should have ran to attack Azkaban prison again and rescue the Death Eaters who were arrested in the Ministry of Magic late last year. Can only give up this action. Unlike the terrorist attacks in the Mole world without magic protection, Azkaban, as an ancient wizard prison, has a lot of magical defenses, especially when the Ministry of Magic and Dumbledore are ready for defense. Voldemort was not sure that he could defeat Azkaban's defense before Principal Dumbledore arrived and rescued the Death Eaters. Once Dumbledore drove to Azkaban, Voldemort's side let alone save people, and even the Death Eaters who were brought to save people were not sure they could all borrow from Dumbledore who borrowed the Azkaban defense system. Escape in his hand. In this strange quiet time, the time came to the end of July. Ryan and Hermione went to the burrow according to the previous agreement. After waiting a few minutes on the side road next to a small village pointed out in the previous letter, they saw Mrs. Weasley dressed in a retro style, and of course there was a high probability that it was a real antique dress. I'm really sorry, because of the reason Harry wants to come over. The Burrow has now taken all kinds of protection measures that the Phoenix Society and the Ministry of Magic can provide. So you have to walk a bit to get to our house now, Weasley Madam said with some embarrassment. It's okay. Many of us in this period have to understand the safety, just like our manor has to run to a designated place 1 kilometer away even to receive an owl letter in order to ensure safety. Sometimes we want to be safe. It must be a little more troublesome, Hermione said to Mrs. Weasley who was greeted, and then she followed Mrs. Weasley to the Burrow with Ryan. I'll say it again. Mundungus, we paid you a very expensive bail to bail you out of Azkaban because you promised to do us a favor in advance. You are actually telling me now you are not doing it." As soon as he entered the door, Ryan heard Moody's roar coming from the kitchen. Because everyone speaks in their throats, no one finds anyone entering. Ryan and Hermione walked over the kitchen door to take a look, and saw that 7 or 8 members of the Order of the Phoenix were arguing around the table. "Yes, I promised that you can help you if you just take me out of Azkaban. But you didn't tell me to let me do this kind of life-threatening job this time. If you told me before if this is the case, I would rather stay in Azkaban than come out. Anyway, now Azkaban has no Dementors, and I don't mind living in it for half a year." Mundungus argued loudly. Tao even overshadowed Moody's roar. "But you say this is too late now." Another voice came, and Ryan heard Sirius's slightly cynical voice. "We have already paid your bail, because you are a repeat offender. This bail is not cheap. So if you didn't want to carry out this task, you can just give me 387 gallons, and the 6 Western me save you." 387 gallons, you still kill me. The little Mundungus leaned back on the chair with his hands on his chest. "Anyway, I will not go, nor will I repay the money. You can do whatever you want with me." There is no good way for hobmeat like Mundungus, so everyone seems helpless. At this moment, Sirius, who was facing the kitchen door, saw Ryan who was probing his brain outside the door. "Ha, Ryan, Hermione, you are also here." Sirius raised his right hand and said, "Hello, we were still guessing when you will come." "We will definitely come by the agreed time. It is impossible to miss the wedding." After that, Ryan turned to look at the crazy-eyed Hermione. "Oh, I just heard what you said at the door. Can you tell me what you need to do?" "That's it. We are going to take Harry before the magic effect that protects Harry disappears." Moody looked at Ryan and explained. "I had planned to show Harry the Phantom. This is the easiest and safest method." However, the secretary, Pierce Sinkins, was very active. He classified many methods as criminal acts. Connect Harry's current house to Flyaway, put a door key in the room, or enter and exit with a phantom. Also say that this is to protect Harry from being caught by the mysterious person. But everyone here knowing that it was pure nonsense. Harry's mother's spell had already done this. All he did was actually prevent Harry from leaving safely. Pierce Sinkins. Lane murmured the name and found that he didn't seem to have much impression of this person. "Is this man a Death Eater? Why did he do this?" "Pierce Sinkins is the Deputy Director of the Enforcement Department of Magic Law," Sirius said. "In my impression, although he is a pureblood wizard, he usually tends to those pureblood families when doing things. But it is not a Death Eater." The group of guys who accurately said he was the Ministry of Magic launched after the last war, when the pureblood family was seriously injured to seize power. As for why did he do this, Sirius frowned at this point. "We can't figure out, because the reasons he put forward are very reasonable. If we didn't know in advance that Voldemort's side had inserted enough spies in the Ministry of Magic to be able to detect and learn about our operation in advance, I will even recognize his ideas. So I really have no way to judge whether it is a plot by Voldemort or good intentions to do bad things, but objectively speaking, his suggestion has indeed caused us enough trouble." "Actually the worst is not this," Lupin said slowly. "Now the most difficult part of our plan is Harry. He is not yet a teenager. www.mplnovel.com with traces on his body." "Professor, I'll interrupt." Ryan raised his hand to signal that he had a problem. When Lupin stopped, he said, "I think I have a way to block the reaction of the traces. I think this should also be applicable to Harry body." "Actually we have guessed this already," Moody said. "An alchemist needs a lot of practice to improve his level. You can reach this level in alchemy at such a young age that you can use all. There is no other explanation than the time to practice. But now our problem is that the Ministry of Magic even monitors Harry by weakening the monitoring of other areas during this time. Any magic fluctuations in that area will be monitored." "Damn it," Ryan muttered, knowing that that kind of shielding would indeed produce magical fluctuations in an instant. When he was shielding at that time, he used the Wonji grocery store to cover up the momentary magic fluctuations. Later, when he helped Hermione to shield, he also took her to the wizard's gathering place to use the characteristics of many people to confuse the monitoring of the magic world. So now that Harry has been heavily monitored, the methods he used before will not work. "So what is our current plan?" Hermione asked curiously. "We now have a fake news in the Ministry of Magic that we will transfer Harry on the 30th of this month. Of course, we don't think this trick can completely deceive mysterious people. So we thought of a man who would disperse the enemy's power as much as possible." "Idea," Moody said after clearing his throat. Chapter 598. Dig. "Is that plan dangerous? Because I just heard Mundungus say at the door that he would rather die than participate in this plan." Ryan asked. "Of course it's dangerous," Moody rushed to say before he spoke. "Did you know? Their plan was to find 6 people to drink the compound soup to become Harry's look, and then split into 7 teams with Harry himself and proceed in 7 directions. This way, Harry could be put to the best of his ability. Send it out safely, because in theory even a mysterious person cannot divide himself into 7 parts." The mysterious man really divided himself into 7 parts, but there was no way to run out and chase us down. Hermione confessed to Ryan through the Phoenix brand, but no one else at the scene heard this, and Montangus's angry voice reverberated in the small kitchen. But this means that 2 people in each group will be under siege from a group of Death Eaters, and even mysterious people will join the siege team. I think in this case, there is no difference between participating in this operation and finding death. Shut up, Mundungus. Moody snapped the table. You are a coward. Dumbledore will always respond to us in this operation. Even if we meet a mysterious person, we can get Dumbledore's support as long as we support in the air for 5 to 6 minutes. Yes, 5 or 6 minutes. It's easy to say, but at least I don't think there are 2 of us who can survive this time under the attack of the mysterious man. Mundungus seemed hysterical. Let me die for others. I really can't do it. Maybe only you idiots will do it. Mundungus. Moody stood up with his hands on the table, and his eyes glared at Mundungus at the same time. I know you are a bonus reptile, but you don't want everyone to think the same as you. Okay, don't quarrel. Ryan figured out what was going on. So we can only use the flying broom, Yi-Chi or Sirius to avoid the monitoring of mysterious people, because these things don't require us to use magic, right? It is indeed so, Lupin said gently. I know this is a very dangerous plan, but we don't have a better alternative. But I think I have a way to greatly increase the security of this program. Ryan suddenly thought of something he had seen in the world of Men in Black before. How many days is it until Harry is picked up? If it's not today, 3 days. Sirius stood up and said excitedly, do you have any way to improve the safety of this operation? Of course, but I need to get such an independent house before dark today. This house must be within 3 kilometers of Harry's house, and it must have nothing to do with the magic world before. At the same time, get this, the house method cannot use any magical means to avoid causing suspicion. Lane said, no problem, let me do it. Lupin stood up, and he now almost unconditionally trusted what Ryan said. As far as I know, there are very few things that Muzz cannot afford. After speaking, Lupin looked at Sirius, and Sirius nodded immediately. No problem. I still have a lot of mole money here. At least I can do it by renting a small house. I thought that Sirius once had a culture that loved the mole world and bought a very expensive motorcycle, so it is natural for him to have enough pounds on hand. However, Sirius remained in the burrow for safety, and Lupin called Downs, who was upstairs, to ask Mrs. Weasley for housework tips, and the 2 went to London together. Lupin and Tonks came to London and went to the bank to withdraw money from Sirius' account. After looking at the map and determining the distance, they went straight to Surrey in West London. It only took 2 hours to stay in Harbin, in a small town in the Moor Valley area next to Aunt Lee's house. She successfully rented a 2-story single-family house about the size of Aunt Harry's house at a distance from the surrounding house. Renting a house so easily is related to the recent terrorist attacks by Voldemort, because the previous terrorist attacks were mainly concentrated in the Greater London area and the surrounding areas. Many local people chose to take refuge elsewhere temporarily. This leads to a lot of vacancies in this area. The chubby real estate agent who was called over was a little surprised when he saw them paying in cash, but after seeing Tonks gently pulling a handkerchief out of his pocket to help Lupin wipe the sweat off his forehead, it was relieved. Because Lupin had been through the vicissitudes of life for the first half of his life, even if his life was good in the past 2 years, he made up for the physical injuries he suffered in the previous difficulties. But the face that was older than his peers and the hair with white hair could not be changed. In the eyes of the housing agent, Lupin and Tonks are obviously a couple of very different ages. Probably because of the family's opposition, you can only elope. In this case, their credit card was naturally blocked, and renting a house with cash seemed logical. Of course, Lupin didn't know the story of the brain broker opposite the house broker. He just felt that his rent was really smooth this time. After paying the deposit and rent, the house can be used by Lupin in the next 2 years. This place is very good. After using the double-sided mirror to notify the people waiting in the burrow, Ryan and Hermione appeared in the house together soon. Lupin had previously learned from Dumbledore that Ryan and Hermione had mastered a special method of space transfer, which could avoid most of the Wizarding World's detection and space magic. But he was still shocked after seeing it with his own eyes. Unlike the slap and twist appearance when changing phantoms in the past, Ryan and Hermione suddenly appeared from the room hand in hand, and the 2 suddenly appeared before the person like the one edited in the video. Empty place. Can I ask what your plan is? Tonks asked curiously. Of course. Hermione nodded and introduced. We will dig out an underground passage that knows Aunt Harry's house from here within 3 days without any magic, and then let Harry evacuate through this underground passage. Others will continue to attract mysterious people according to the previously planned plan. By the way, Harry's attention is time for Harry's evacuation. Although the distance to be excavated in this place is closer to 100 meters than we expected, www.mplnovel.com, but if we start construction now, we should finish our preparation within the scheduled time. Ryan and now Gao made a plan after contacting a spacecraft serving as a reconnaissance satellite in low Earth orbit for a while. We are about to start work now. I hope you will be able to keep the information secret when you go back. You can only tell Moody or Dumbledore at most. Got it. Let's go back to the burrow now and come back in 3 days. Lupin seemed to realize something after listening to Ryan, so he nodded solemnly and took Tonks away. Okay, let's start work now. After Lupin and them left, Ryan first laid some rune gems around the house to build a defensive alchemy circle here, then opened the space door and took it out a silver-white minivan-sized laser scintigrade shield machine. Fortunately, such a thing can be put down in the living room of this house. This shield machine was last obtained by Ryan from the world of the Man in Black. Previously, he wanted this to be able to provide a new underground bunker excavator for the radiation world, so that the pioneer troops could enter those previous ones. New dangerous bunkers can be quickly excavated to ensure safety after never entering a dangerous area. And now this thing just happens to be used to execute this retreat plan. For the next 3 days, Ryan and Hermione have been supervising the excavation of this shield machine in this room until the day of the scheduled retreat. Chapter 599, Subway 1997. Who is knocking on the door? At 12 noon on the day Harry agreed to evacuate Ryan, they just prepared the vehicle running in the tunnel and tried it twice. After confirming that everything was ready, there was a knock at the door. It should be Lupin. They don't know our place at all, Hermione said with her hand extended to hold the wand, and then opened the door. Professor Moody and Professor Lupin, how are you? I'm glad to see you at this time. Good afternoon, Hermione. Lupin greeted gently. Moody's simply nodded his head slightly, and then asked directly, I heard that you plan to dig a hole underneath to retreat Harry. How are you preparing now? It's done, Hermione said and brought Moody and Lupin to the living room. When Ryan saw them coming in, she pushed the sofa forward, and a downward staircase was instantly revealed. Okay, here are the results of our 3 days. Ryan said the first one went down the stairs, and the others followed him down. When the last person entered, Ryan pulled a wrench on the wall, and the sofa returned to its original position. Cover the exit just exposed. Good job, Ryan. Following the spiral steps all the way down, Professor Lupin heartily praised it. This downward passage allows one to stand upright, and the walls and ceiling on both sides have been completely hardened. There is also a small groove in the wall at every distance, and a small bottle of flame is placed in each groove to provide lighting. When they came to the ground about 15 meters underground, an iron gate blocked their way. After pulling the other gate to unlock the door opened inward, and the front of several people suddenly became spacious. A room appeared in front of them. A rectangular basement of tens of square meters, with the whole block sunk down 1 meter on the other side of the basement. A square car was parked there. This car looks about the same size as a larger car, but it looks more like a shrunken subway. At the end of the basement is a deep dark tunnel. There are 2 small steel rails under the car that also extend along the tunnel all the way to the distance until they sink into the darkness. This is a miracle. You actually built a subway in 3 days. Even Modi, who usually keeps a serious face, looked at the pocket subway station in surprise. I believe that the mysterious person will never think we can do this, right? Where is the exit? Over there. In the cubicle under the stairs of Aunt Harry's house. Fortunately they were very loud when they were watching TV last night, so they didn't hear us cutting the floor with a laser cutter, Ryan said. Afterwards he made a request gesture. We can take this car and take a look first, then make a confirmation. 10 minutes later, they appeared in the living room of the house that is currently rented. They just arrived at another site underground in Aunt Harry's house by sitting on the miniature subway. They even climbed up and opened the floor under the staircase to hear Aunt Harry and his uncle shouting loudly. With this subway, our plan can be improved. Moody took a sip of Hermione's freshly made tea. Because I feel that the side of the mysterious person who transferred Harry's intelligence this time already knows it, so now we must have a better backup plan to ensure the safety of this transfer of Harry. It should be so. Ryan nodded. He remembered that the original text was that he was ambushed by Voldemort during the transfer of Harry, and Moody was also killed in this battle. Oh, who knows the news that I'm digging the subway here? Now only me and Lupin, Tonks and Dumbledore only know that you are digging here, but I don't know what you are repairing is that the subway can transfer Harry out so quickly. Of course, I can confirm that they are absolutely. It is impossible to tell this news to others. Moody said avowedly that Dumbledore needn't say it first. Even Tonks is an eliterer, knowing when it should be kept secret. That's good. I think the next arrangement can be like this. Lane told Moody and Lupin his plans. Soon Lupin and Moody left the house, and half an hour later Sirius arrived here as planned. It's terrible, Sirius complained as soon as he entered. Now Gretchen has been turning around the little cub of Narcissa and Malfoy all day, treating me like air. Okay, at least he is now silent after seeing you. This is much better than the curse before, Ryan said. By Sirius, I heard Lupin said you would drive a car? Of course. Sirius raised his head proudly, but soon the look in his eyes dimmed again. At the time I was young and very obsessed with these mule vehicles, so I learned to ride a motorcycle in addition to driving a car. In addition, I also learned to repair them. Of course, the only problem is because I don't have a driver's license. Will you fly the Weasleys' flying car? Hermione asked beside him. Yes. Why? Do I need to drive that car for this operation? Sirius asked. Of course not. Ryan shook his head. That car is too old. It's hard to get unnoticed when driving down the street. I have spent some time remodeling a car before. The performance is the same as that of Weasley's, but it's not so striking. You can come over look. If you can operate it, Drive that car tonight. Got it. Sirius's expression became serious, and he followed Ryan through the door in the room and into the garage. A red Fiat Pondo is parked in the garage. This is a hatchback and the best car sold throughout Europe last year. Naturally, it is also very easy to get caught in the traffic on the street without being discovered. After driving the car around the surrounding block for 2 laps, Lane believed that Sirius was indeed suitable for the next task. Okay, you will stay here now, and after we get to Harry in a while, you will drive your car north and drive about 10 miles before taking Harry's Phantom. Hermione will follow you later. Action. Ryan spoke to Sirius for a while after returning to the garage. Then I will ask you next. 5 minutes later, after listening to Ryan's arrangement, Sirius patted Ryan's shoulder vigorously, and then dully entered the living room. In the next few hours, the 3 people in the room were sitting there in silence. Although Ryan turned on the TV, none of the 3 people looked at the screen with much interest. It wasn't until dark www.mtlnovel.com Ryan stood up and changed clothes to kiss Hermione, and then took Sirius through the subway to number 4 Privet Drive. After reaching the other end of the subway, Sirius appeared a little restless and kept pulling out a silver pocket watch from his arms to open it and then put it back in his arms. Sirius, we need to wait a little longer, so now can you sit there and rest for a while, because this evening will definitely be very long. Seeing Sirius started like a wolf in a cage in a zoo leaning around in this pocket-sized subway station, Ryan couldn't bear the atmosphere and spoke. I know everything. Sirius smiled bitterly when he stood still. But I am nervous. Understood. Lane nodded. After all, the task you undertake is the most important one, so I think you better calm down. At least you have to ensure that you are in the best condition tonight. I know. Sirius nodded and said, as he was about to say something, Ryan's face changed suddenly and pulled out a silver badge from his arms. This badge is only the size of a thumb, and it is now flashing white light and shaking continuously. Okay, we should start now. Ryan smashed the little badge, and then walked towards the spiral stairs. Sirius stood nervously waiting. Chapter 600, Stealing Beams for Columns. Came to the top of the spiral staircase and Ryan pushed hard up, and a wooden floor was lifted up. While Ryan was climbing up, he just saw Harry open the small door and looked at Ryan in a suit that looked exactly like what he was wearing now. It's just that the suit looked a bit stretched on Ryan. Good evening, Harry. Ryan raised his hand and greeted Harry before saying to him, now time is tight, so I won't say anything else. You are going from here now. Sirius is waiting for you underneath. He will tell you what to do next. By the way, all your luggage must be left. Give it to me. You just have to leave with your wand empty-handed. Harry looked confused, and he turned to look at Moody who was following. I saw Moody nodded seriously and said, this is another part of our plan. Professor Dumbledore knows this. Okay. Harry froze for a moment, a confused look on his face. But he knew this was not a time to delay, so he quickly squeezed into the small warehouse according to Ryan's request, and then entered the underground tunnel. Let everyone take care. I hope we will see you later. As he walked down the stairs until only his head was left on the ground, Harry looked at Ryan seriously and said, you're the same. Ryan waved his hand, then watched Harry disappear completely on the stairs and then stepped forward to close the floor, only to restore everything on the floor to its original appearance. It's time for us next. Moody nodded slightly, and then took out a small branch of clear golden yellow liquid. You drank the compound decoction first? We don't have much time. We can't let the outsiders notice the wrong here. Ryan took the small bottle and drank it. This time it tasted a bit like a wine mixed with mustard. As a burning sensation spread throughout his body, he felt a melting fever started. The whole body is getting smaller, like shrinking. Finally, all the strange feelings faded and the transformation was completed. Lane found that everything was fogged in front of his eyes at this time, so he quickly took out the round glasses from his pocket and put them on. After putting on the glasses, everything in front of him was clear again. It feels much better. The suit was a little too tight just now. Ryan moved his hands and feet. He just put on the same clothes as Harry in advance for convenience. He had been worried about which button on the road collapsing. Okay, come with me. Moody pulled Ryan out of the small storage room, and then took him to the kitchen. At this time, there were already 6 Harry standing in the kitchen. Ryan was a little curious about who Hermione did not fill the gap today, but this time he was posing as Harry, so he could only bear his curiosity until everyone arrived. Say, after a safe place. Harry, how did you go to the bathroom for so long? One of Harry asked. Ryan thought it was Ron who could ask that, but Moody answered on his behalf before he could answer. When you just changed clothes, you should also respect Harry's personal privacy a little bit, otherwise you think why Harry went to the bathroom behind. Sorry, buddy, the Harry said again, and Ryan could be sure that this Harry was indeed Ron's change. At this time, Moody pulled out a backpack and an owl cage from a space pocket, and each cage contained a peeled snow specimen. We don't have to take so many things. Ryan stepped forward and said in Moody's amazed eyes, I just need Hathaway to help me send a letter to my friend. We should be able to run faster with 1 cage less. Okay, hurry up. Moody motioned Ryan to write a letter behind him. He suddenly thought that the difference between live owls and owl specimens might not be able to conceal those Death Eaters. Ryan wrote the address of Weasley's burrow on an empty envelope on the back table, imitating Harry's notes, and then gave Hathaway to leave with a letter. Watching Hathaway become a small spot in the air, Moody put away those snow-clogged specimens and cages and started the next arrangement. The grouping is like this: Harry and I ride the broom. This way we can guarantee that even if a real mysterious person attacks, we can get Dumbledore to come and support us. Arthur, you take Fred. Ray, James, you bring George. The two Harry standing in the middle nodded at the same time, and Moody looked at the other Harry. Miss Dracula. I take Furong to ride the night chick, said Bill, who was not disfigured and still looking handsome. She doesn't like flying brooms very much. Furong walked over to stand next to Bill, using the sentimental little bird to follow. People looked at him. Everyone in the room watched Furong's expression on Harry's face, and there was a chill in his heart. Ron, you and Kingsley also rode the night chi Moody arranged, because I want to make sure that each group is sure to escape successfully. So Ron, you have to be with Kingsley, who is second only to me here. Ron nodded with a look of joy, and he seemed to have arranged for this very satisfied. Percy, you are with Tunks. Moody finally spoke about the arrangement of the person that Ryan didn't know. It's reasonable for Percy to appear here now. All the adult men of the Weasley family in Britain today, now that they are all involved in this operation. Then Percy, who has not been upset with his family, is certainly not the exception. Not to mention that Percy has been on the front line of fighting the Black Wizard for the past 2 years. From a certain perspective, he is more suitable to participate in this type of combat-related operations. Great, I'm glad to work with you again, Tunks said happily as she waved Percy over a cup holder. Then please take care of me, Percy said politely, pretending that he didn't see Tunks' clumsiness. Okay, Mundungus, then you follow me. Hagrid grabbed the last Harry who tried to escape himself from everyone's sight. You will sit in the car for a while, and if you dare to run away, I promise to see you and beat you again and again. Mundungus turned into what Harry wanted to say, but after seeing Hagrid shaking his basketball-sized fist in front of him, he swallowed and swallowed back the protest he just wanted to say. We can all guess that Death Eaters will think you are riding a broomstick, Moody said to Ryan, but this time we only need to drag the mysterious man for 5 or 6 minutes. Professor Dumbledore will come to support us, so instead of letting you gamble on luck in transportation that is not good at you, it is better to let you use your best golfer's flying skills to drag through these few minutes. Ryan nodded. He knew that Moody still didn't say a word, that is, the so-called true Harry who followed him was actually Ryan, and he hoped that by cooperating with Ryan, he could drag Voldemort and Death Eaters as much as possible. Let us get more time to help Harry escape. Moody packed everything and led everyone towards the door, and said, we leave within 3 minutes. The back door doesn't need a lock. Death Eaters have to come and search www.mplnovel.com. The lock can't stop them. Bring it on. Lane quickly ran to the living room in the direction of Moody's finger to get Harry's backpack and firebolt, and then came to the Black Garden backyard with everyone beside him. He jumped the broom into the hands of Man. Ron had already sat on the back of a huge black Yeechi under Kingsley's help, and Bill helped Furong ride another Yeechi. Hagrid wore goggles and stood beside the huge motorcycle, ready to go. Sirius generously counted this motorcycle as a public property of the Phoenix Society. He and Mr. Arthur had been busy with this motorcycle and installed a lot of institutions on this car last night. Seeing Ryan staring at the motorcycle with some curiosity, Hagrid said with a smile. At this time, Mundungus threw himself into a bucket the size of a boat, and then sat up scolding and rubbing his elbow desperately. Speaking of the organization, Hagrid, Mr. Weasley grabbed his broom and stood beside them. We didn't have time to test before, so there was no way to determine whether they were safe. Okay, Moody said, everyone is ready. After I give the order, everyone should leave at the same time, otherwise the entire containment tactics will fail. After hearing this sentence, Ryan immediately crushed another badge in his pocket and sent the news of the start of the operation to Sirius on the underground train.